of the board meeting of the Winona County Board. We have, oopsie,
Your water.
you're not going to be pouring water tonight on the floor as a visual aid for any of our discussion topics. We have 4 topics tonight. The first one of these is to discuss dog breeding facilities. Commissioner Olson.
So I know we had talked about this previously, and then the discussion apparently was to wait till we got a planning director, and I know that is long and long haul to do that, so I wanted to bring it forth, get it on the agenda.
Yeah, I gave that a second because it's been now since May when we first got the report back. And it's really been a year before that. So, it's going on a year and a half or 2 years. And I'd love to see us just decide to move forward up or down either way, but, to not just have it hang there. Commissioner Ward.
I don't think it needs to hang there because I think the breeders that are doing the job are following the rules, the regulations, the inspections and everything. And then I just found out, but maybe we want to help them step it up a bit. There's going to be this disconnect. There seems to be a disconnect, and the ladies aren't in the audience today, a disconnect with the public. But there is a demand for purebred dogs. And purebred dogs aren't going to come through the shelters or the rescues or the small breeders. And there is some concern with black market dogs coming into the country because there's a huge demand. People want pets, and that's great. But heaven forbid we have, black market animals coming in from Europe and Asia and everything else. But there are several programs that I've learned about to make them even better, and it addresses, there's 5 things. Again, I just Googled this afternoon. There's like 5 things that this does. It's a program. It's a certification program, and it is based on animal health, socialization, behavior, genetics, just all kinds of things that everybody seems to be concerned about. And in Minnesota, it's a Breeders of Excellence program. They can earn, it's still carried out through the Animal Board of Health and everything, but there's like five different aspects. They can earn what they refer to as badges and become certified. I think it's a certification. The other one I heard about was through the University of Purdue. It's a canine care certification, and it covers a lot of the same topics. So somewhere in the discussion, I think we need to enhance, make them better, make them more aware of what's going on. And if we're into economic development, people need to make money to pay their taxes and do all the things that we want to do. So instead of trying to put somebody out of business, I think we should be helping them stay in business and do as good a job or better than they're currently doing. So I don't know how we do that because we still don't have a planning director, and it's going to take some time. And briefly speaking to some of the planning commission members, and we do have minutes from back in May, the majority said to do nothing, and that was kind of we didn't vote, we didn't discuss it as a full committee, but that's kind of the sentiment I got from a number of the planning commission members also.
So is this just to see if we want to move forward and put it on the agenda to have these types of discussions, or is this to have an open discussion, just putting it on the agenda?
On May 9th of 2023, the following occurred at a board meeting, and this is from the minutes of that meeting. On a motion by Commissioner Olson and seconded by Commissioner Vagley to acknowledge receipt of the April 2023 Planning Commission Dog Kennel Facility Findings of Fact recommendation and begin the process of implementing a zoning ordinance amendment that could potentially prohibit new large-scale dog breeding facilities. The vote was yes 3, no 1. So we did take a vote. What we didn't do is set a timeline for when we would begin these discussions.
Sure.
And staff, I think, looked at the videos from the meeting where it was discussed. And the statement that they came back with was that Commissioner Vegley mentioned several times that he didn't want to put extra pressure on staff until a planning director was hired, but that was not in the formal motion, and so there was no additional insight on a timeline. So at least my goal in seconding this for discussion at this meeting would be to set a date or time to actually bring it back to a regular board meeting where we can actually make some decisions and vote
So the goal right now is whether or not
to discuss it.
to discuss it at a future date again,
Exactly.
put a timeline to it.
And to put a timeline on having the discussion, I think, at the next board meeting, in 3 months, regardless of whether we hire a planning commission, planning director. I mean, that,
My thoughts on this, first of all, is I think that's why we have people and we hire people to do this, to take a little more in-depth look at what may or may not be needed. Especially when you start looking at limiting someone's livelihood. I think it has to be a little more, less than frivolous, or more than frivolous in a matter of an opinion, just a, hey, I feel this. Otherwise we could say, hey, we shouldn't wear red shirts because I don't like the color red. I believe that.
hey, watch it.
Pinkish red. But you know, that's to me, I'm pro-business, and it's going to take a lot to really convince me that we need to limit somebody's livelihood because of opinion. And, you know, I think that's a lot of power held by a few people that can really have an effect on how people generate revenue based on feelings. The other side that I have is, you know, dog is considered a pet, but I know people that might think a cow or a pig or a horse or an ant or something is a pet. And are we just in the process of starting more regulation? So I guess I don't feel the need to discuss anything. Nothing's been presented to me that says that we have an issue. I've talked to a bunch of different people about it, and I feel kind of the same way. So that's my 2 cents.
I'd make a motion not to bring it to a full county board meeting, to use the regulations and such we have, and at some time, maybe enhance them with one of these breeding programs.
I would second that.
Well, we don't do formal votes at this meeting.
We gotta-
We kind of work more by
I don't know.
consensus.
I don't know.
But we can do a sense of the body. It's non-binding.
I'm
So-
just saying, I would second that. Okay.
And in a non-binding vote, then Commissioner Ward has suggested we not bring it back to the full county board, and Commissioner Elsing agrees with this. So those who support that, just dropping this where it is right now, maybe signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I would say I just based on the original kind of contention of this was.
But we haven't heard from the others.
We don't know anybody else, you know, we
And-
haven't got a person put into place yet.
Yeah, and those who would like to move it forward also say aye.
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 Okay, so do we have any ideas on a timeline?
I know in the original discussion, I didn't want to kick the can down the road. I've been working on this since 2016. I think we're at the end of the road, so I would like to make a little bit of a priority back there, to get something forward. Again, this does nothing to the existing folks. We can still enhance their operations to the existing ones. I would like to see something that would limit large scale new operations.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
general question? If I felt as though snow plowing was a bad thing and I said, hey, you shouldn't have all the snow plow jobs, you might damage concrete, cost me money, whatever it is, break the curb, I gotta pay to fix it as a taxpayer. What's the consensus of anybody that has a business to limit them to where they are today? And say, you can do more, nobody else can come in and do anything less. What are we trying to accomplish by doing that? What issue are we solving as a board for the general public, what's the issue that we're solving for the general public? What's at risk for the general public that we feel we need to limit?
I'll take a stab at that.
Go for it.
Our staff we're understaffed. Our staff is stretched too thin. This is one of the areas where we have regulations. The state has regulations. We have some ordinances, but the ability to actually monitor and enforce them we don't have enough staff to do that.
But I don't believe we have much to really do with that. So most of this is state orientated.
Yeah.
Most of it,
Animal
yes.
Yeah, I mean, 99% of it
Yes.
is state orientated, so
Um,
I can't really validate that.
So to finish my thought, the reason is to put a moratorium or to end any new facilities until we have enough time to, I guess, and there has been, this isn't just an opinion, Josh, this has been an issue that we've had a lot of.
I live in it. I've been there for years.
Yeah.
But have you had a chance to visit the actual
I would like
breeders?
to. I've asked a number of times to have folks invite me out. I'm not going to show up at someone's door, but I'd
Well,
love-
it's a little, it's an Amish
Well, I wanna
community, so
say,
it takes a little coordination.
Hold on, I wanna
absolutely.
stay
If
on
you would
this.
love to help me, sorry, Josh,
I wanna
if you would
stay-
like to help me do that, Marcia, I'd love that. Because
But what I'm asking is to limit something. There
Yeah,
has to be,
yeah.
to me, there has to be some sort of imminent threat. There has to be something for the common good of the people and this is the part that I can't figure out. There's nothing that is as a governing board for, in essence, serving our citizens. What is the imminent threat? What is the danger to our society, a group of people? What are we trying to accomplish by limiting business? What are we trying to accomplish?
most breeders do a fantastic job. The problem is a few breeders have in the past had some concerns brought forward about animal welfare issues that are not being adequately addressed or monitored by the state. So it's an animal welfare issue. And we're talking about dogs. We're not talking about anything else. We're not talking about ants. We're not talking about cows. We're talking about dogs. And
Do you have reports stating that?
As recently as April of 2023.
Okay, but was that
I don't
Mrs.
disagree
Yoder?
with any of that.
That was some
But
paperwork
if that's a state issue,
and her
but not a
husband had
county
died.
issue, I go back to, by limiting it, how does it solve any problem or create something positive or take away something negative for John Q. public taxpayer?
It's a way to limit our ability. I guess you are right. Most of it is done by the state. They don't have enough staff to monitor the existing, what's on the books. A lot of things exist on the books, but it's really just a false sense of security. So the reason that to limit it is to prevent future damage, et cetera. We're doing nothing with the existing land, owners and operators, even though I like your idea, Marcia, in terms of
Yeah.
encouraging, maybe not requiring, but encouraging people to take the next step up or two. But the tough part is some people don't want to have tough conversations with certain Amish business owners, which
But I
think
go back to the word damage.
Yeah.
When we assess the word damage, it's speculative. It's argumentative. It's your version versus this person's version of what is damage. What are we saying is wrong?
I think that we agree that there's some point where some people it does become it passes a line from a dog breeder to a puppy mill, where it's all about just sheer numbers with almost no concern for the animals as they go through. Isn't that somewhat objective? Couldn't you look at some examples and say that this is not a responsible business owner who's not living up to the requirements from the state?
I believe that I've seen it in the cattle industry.
They got it
I don't, but we
It's
didn't go
regulated
limit
now.
cattle production or cattle breeding because one person may or may not have done it. That is the thing. And that's why we have a state department that does that. Now, unfortunately, they may or may not be able to do their job, and I can't speak on their behalf, right? But as a governing agency, we turn it back and say, why are we sitting here? It's for the general good of the population.
Right.
And so tell me what good this does for the population. What does this create that the population is saying, hey, there's this, I don't mean just a few people, but I mean the majority, the masses out here that are saying, hey, there might be some of that. I can walk into a barn and say, that cow isn't being taken care of because she has mange. And the next person can walk in and say, well, that's common in my herd. It's all speculative.
We're not
And s-
talking about cows, we're talking about companion
But
animals.
that,
So
but I
I'm-
relate it
I'm-
back to an animal.
I
And
don't
say,
mean to-
what common good does it do?
I don't mean to cut you off, Josh, but I don't think that today we're going to have the conversation about what the proper rights are of the county to do zoning.
Correct.
But certainly there are state statutes that regulate this sort of thing, but that's not the debate that I came to have. Really, I really wanted to know, are we, does a majority of the board like to, would they like to put this on an actual meeting agenda for action?
No,
And-
because it says
And I understand that you
potentially
don't, right?
prohibit new law, potentially prohibit.
Yes,
That means ban.
I understand
And
that.
if,
And
if
we
we're
did,
the
we did
county
take
of
a
no,
vote,
we're
and we
the
did
county
take a
of
vote,
no.
and at least three of us, I think, would like to have it come forward. The
Okay,
question
then
is,
I
what's-
think you need to clarify for staff,
That's-
what kind of information
What's
do
the
you need?
timeline?
That's what I'm trying
No,
to get.
not timeline. What is it that you're looking for? Is it, like Commissioner Vaguely said, is there any information that will convince you not to ban? Or is there conditions? I mean, we have size limitations, we have requirements.
But
already.
can we discuss the timeline?
And I
Well,
apologize if
timeline
I'm
is
lengthy.
respective to how much
But
information you need.
I need to get.
So
up
we've
to
already,
speed.
this has come from the planning commission. There was a public hearing. We've had folks from the industry, we've had folks that are from other agencies speak to us. So maybe we can do the public hearing over again, but the recordings, I'm sure, are available if you wanted to watch them on the internet. So rather than have the conversation about what we're going to do, I think my goal in seconding this was really to just find out if we want to keep delaying because we don't have a planning director, or if we want to move forward more quickly than that and set a time for certain when the board would come back to the topic.
And I'm trying to figure out the other, I think I understand Marcia, she's been very vocal.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out what the urgency is. What's this? Oh my gosh, we got to do this now. What are we trying? What is the issue? And that's
I
what I'm
think
trying to
as-
get the.
There's
Yeah.
no applications in the hopper. I don't believe. Eric's sitting there. No abundance of people looking to get into this industry. The reports from the facilities are okay. There's no problem and stuff.
Right.
Um,
Well, that might not be an accurate description of the situation, but
Well, the situation, you're talking about Ada or.
I don't want to have that conversation now.
Well, you keep bringing it up. So,
I believe you brought it up, but
no, you said there was problems. I didn't, I said, I think it was paperwork.
So I think we can sit and disagree and discuss it, but we should do it at a meeting, on the official agenda. And I would like to get it, for discussion on an official agenda. And I think we have three people that would like to. It's not about, it's about the dogs, even in a best regulated kennel. The animal welfare, we've had professional testimony. The dogs are not being properly cared for in their temperament and in their lifestyle. They're a sentiment animal. So I,
Commissioner Olson, did you visit the kennels back in 16?
no, I was not allowed to because I went unannounced.
Okay.
So they wouldn't allow me in.
Okay, but you never tried to go back again and you haven't been back.
I saw enough.
Commissioner Bagley, yeah.
Two things. If, again, Marcia, if you'd like to help set that up, I've been to a lot of Amish farms over the years. If you would like, I would love to do those visits later on. Like you said, there's no hurry. But to Marcia's point, I think we should be clear, like what we're asking staff to do. I thought originally we were like, considering a moratorium
Yep.
versus a ban. But then the last discussion, I believe the motion was a ban, versus a moratoriums, which tend to be temporary.
Yep, that's right.
But I think it's important that we clarify what we're asking the staff to do. And I think it's also okay to we can't talk the entire 45 minutes, but I think it's important because this is the first time that Josh has been on the board, correct, Josh, in terms of we've discussed this issue. So we need to either here and or at a general meeting have this discussion at some point. And I realize we have a limited amount of time, so we need to And maybe in the future, if we think we have a lot of things, we should maybe ahead of time agree to this takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever else. But I think we do need to have these discussions either here and or at a general business meeting. But I think we should be clear, like what would you like to see have the staff?
Well,
look at?
the goal, at least my goal, was always to have, the moratorium would be a temporary thing while we develop an ordinance.
Okay.
There is no demand right now, as they say, nothing in the hoppers. So we have the timeline to prohibit future large-scale dog breeding operations in Winona County. That would be my goal.
Until an ordinance.
Yeah, what's
So
defined as large scale?
That
No,
would
the
be
request
part of
was
the
not
ordinance.
to do a temporary moratorium.
We have ordinance.
We discussed that and the county attorney advised against us.
Mhm.
And then based on staff's recommendation, it was sent to the planning commission, who had a public hearing and then said to us, take no action. Our recommendation is to take no action. So back in May,
Because there are rules. Size.
3 commissioners voted to begin the process of implementing a zoning ordinance amendment that would potentially prohibit new large-scale dog breeding facilities. So that was where it was left in terms of voting, was not to do a temporary moratorium, but to have that conversation. So now if we don't want to do that, we'll, we want to go back to potentially doing a moratorium?
No, I'm saying that a moratorium is not needed.
Okay.
The goal was to go ahead with developing an ordinance to prohibit future large-scale dog breeding operations in Winona County.
Well, no, you don't develop an ordinance to ban something. You just ban it. Why would you develop an ordinance to prohibit something?
Our guidance was and continues to be that a moratorium might not be legally appropriate because there has to be a declaration that there's an existing emergency.
That's what I was asking, right there. What is the problem?
But the amendment process for amending official controls is in 5.4.3 of the zoning ordinance. And I guess what we might need clarification on sort of is where we're at in that process, given that there appears to have been a public hearing of some sort in front of the planning commission, but then it's kind of been scuttled out. If we need to go back to that stage with a specific language that the board has in mind for amendment to the ordinance, or if we're just here kind of talking about what you want the language to say before we then hold the public hearings that are required by the ordinance.
And that would be the question to discuss at a board meeting.
Yes.
And just the 2 cents I have to it. If I abuse one animal, if I abuse 10 animals, still an animal gets abused. Right? And that's not right. At the end of the day, I can have a breeder that has 5 and doesn't care. Or I can have a breeder that has 50 and doesn't care. I don't understand what large has to do with it. That's when I was a large company, right? Or I can go down to the little local warehouse and that guy could be beating the crap out of his employees. I have no idea. Either way, it's wrong. Wrong is wrong. What does large have to do with it? That's what I don't understand.
I think we would need sort of direction, or maybe that's what staff can internally come up with proposed language for what the board considers to be a large operation versus an acceptable operation. Right now, I believe kennels are a conditional use in the ARC district.
Yep, right. And there is a limit to the number of dogs.
4 adults, 4 breeding adults.
Yeah, there's already a limit.
But what does, I mean,
Yeah,
this is just
again.
common sense.
Yeah.
What does size have to do with care? Other than the amount of people potentially able to do it. And if the state regulates that and says it happens, you're gonna have 4 dogs that are being neglected, which happens a lot of times in inner cities. Or you could have 50 dogs that are being taken care of by 10 people. It can happen regardless of the size. So that's where I go back and say, limiting the size does not ensure if there's an issue that it's taken care of. I'm just trying to put my head around this because we always seem to get so confused that bigger is just going to be this more horrible thing. I don't think it's that bad. I love it when they build great big fancy buildings. And that's my thing. We need economic development. And so I go back to the coin phrase that I developed at the SWCD, education over regulation. Martha's idea, let's go help them out. It doesn't matter. You could have 4, you can have 40. If we need to do something for the economic good of our people, let's try to help it out. Let's figure out how we can do it. That's my final thought.
What are we asking the staff to do?
To develop an amendment to our zone. What we're asking, it just as Alex just said.
You'd like to see proposed language for an amendment to the zoning ordinance permitting this as a conditional use and having some carve out for large scale operations versus something else?
Yes. I mean, it's,
But I'm sorry, don't we already have an ordinance? I don't have it in front of me.
No, we don't.
We have rules, we have size. We have, it's a conditional use permit. We went into, they had to have exercise room. Eric, can you help me out here?
No, there are no animal welfare provisions in our zoning ordinance.
no, that's just land use.
Yeah.
We did, well, by a
No,
conditional use
Administrator
permit.
Qualley did a series of research. There's a report that Mr. Tillman sent us earlier today. It has a grid at the very end that identifies there are 4 counties, Rice County is one of them, but Dodge is another, that actually have some animal welfare provisions in their zoning ordinance relative to large scale dog breeding facilities.
Okay, I didn't see that email, but through a conditional use permit, which goes with each applicant, you can put conditions on as far as size and space and all those things.
Yeah.
So we have that available to us now.
Size is not the issue. Animal welfare is the issue. And at least to my satisfaction, the individuals that spoke and the organizations and the lawyers who have successfully sued the USDA, to my satisfaction, indicated, proved to me that the existing bodies that do animal welfare regulation do not do them in a way that protects the welfare of the dog. And it is just the way the business is done.
So do we need to go to every household that has a dog and do an animal welfare check? Even the backyard breeders,
No,
the
for
city of
sure.
Winona?
Our staff has said to us they do not have the
Well, how are you going to
expertise.
discriminate?
That's right.
I could have a
That's
dog.
right, that you
That's right.
Commissioner
You're
Meyer, you
outright
just said
discriminating.
size is not a factor. It's the welfare of the animal. Literally verbatim what you just said. And I go back to my point. What does size have to do with animal welfare? It doesn't solve anything.
Yes, it does. I mean,
How?
the
You literally
conditions,
just said it
the
didn't matter.
conditions in which the industry runs a large scale facility, the dogs are kept in cages. The breeders associations talk about the number of pups, litters of pups that a dog maybe could have in its entire lifetime. It's in single digits, maybe 5 or less. And yet some of those female dogs will have 2 or 3 a year. And we've had folks come and talk to us from Olmsted County, Hannibal Humane Society, about dogs that they've received as rescue dogs given away by the breeders. They've spent their entire life in a cage and now they have arthritis
I
and can't
appreciate
walk.
the backstory, but how does size stop that?
So keeping
If I have
dogs,
20 dogs, 2 dogs, 200 dogs, I can treat the 20 dogs just the same as the 200 dogs if I want. I can milk puppies out of them things all day long. It doesn't solve.
but it
the
is my
problem.
goal to try and bite my tongue so that we don't have the dog discussion, because I don't think that's really the goal of this today, is to
I don't
have a
understand
full
the logic
discussion
behind it.
about dogs. But should,
So should we look at a countywide neutering program?
Eric, did you want us to share something?
I know, I was just gonna answer the question.
I don't want to get in the middle of that.
I mean, I've heard, you're waiting for a planning director. You're looking for someone to come up with a number. There's no number that's going to jump out to say this is ideal.
No.
If you're going to regulate it, I hate to use the word like feedlots, if you're going to put a cap on, you're going to have to, that would be the type of amendment that you're looking at. I just
What I-
employ.
What I heard staff say is that you don't have the expertise, nor do you have the staff to actually do animal welfare checks.
Well, there,
Which is where we come down to, well, then we can
Right.
at least not allow new kennels, large dog breeding facilities with those practices in the county.
right, there's a number of entities that are actually regulating it.
Yes.
I think in your materials, there's an exhibit that shows what roles, what functions between the Minnesota Board of Animal Health, Minnesota Department of Ag, Winona County Law Enforcement. And you're talking about welfare issues, it's different.
I don't understand how size solves any problem. I know 10,000 cow dairies and cows are way better than that. I know people that neglect people, I know animals, I know people that do good with their animals. It has nothing to do with size. It has everything to do
I
with
know
the person
breeders,
doing it.
I know breeders that abuse their animal. There's dogs chained up to trees out around.
They do it
They're not
fighting dogs.
breeders, but
Yeah,
they're
I
not
just-
taking the
I can't
best care
figure
of
out
their
how
animal.
limiting size is gonna solve the problem. All it's gonna do is drive it out of the county and go somewhere else.
No,
Doesn't
we
make
have
any
other
sense.
topics we need to move on to.
Let's move on.
So where are we leaving it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So do we want to ask staff to move ahead even though the Stephanie Nuttall's position is still vacant? So Alex is just a temporary and he's actually probably doing 3 other jobs at the same time and we don't have a director.
You guys might be stuck with me. We'll see.
Oh, well, that would be fabulous. But
Okay.
like, do we want to try and move forward in spite of that?
Should we wait until after the new year in terms of the budget stuff? I don't want to kick it too far down the road, but just to get until after all the budget issues are settled, et cetera.
I'll just say that a lot of the individuals who speak about this, in fact, are in my constituency. And so they do contact me on a routine
I
basis,
have 3 signs around my house. Yeah.
wondering when are we going to actually do something? So
And that just blows me away, how we can let groups of people that know nothing about what it takes in agriculture to dictate.
These people know a lot about what they're talking about.
They don't
Well,
eat,
but
sleep and breathe
a lot
every
of them
day
have-
like we do.
If they've taken a
Every
rescue
day.
dog, in my opinion, a
Every
lot of
day.
time a rescue dog, it's not the breeder that caused the problem. It's the person who took the rescue, or
You said
bought the
it.
puppy, took it home and didn't
Josh, what'd you
didn't
say?
do their
That'd be
job.
like me saying I know anything about teaching. I don't know much about teaching, but I know the concept of teaching, but you could tell me way better all the
Absolutely.
idiosyncrasies. I'd never sit here and challenge you on that because you obviously are going to beat me up on that all day long. I don't know what it's like to be that. And so that's just disappointing to me that we have a comment in a section that says these people do this all day long when we eat, sleep and breathe this, especially considering they're all in our backyard. So I got to.
My point was is that these people who are involved are very involved in the issue. They're not just,
They're involved with the issue because it's passionate, but they're not involved with agriculture. They don't understand economics. They're not the ones actually business. They're not business orientated in that fashion. And to regulate somebody's livelihood, you better. come
so
up
after
with
the first
something
of the year,
good.
is that okay?
January? Mr. Olson?
It's not, but if that's all I can get, I'll take it.
I'm thinking the second, we have 3 meetings
And-
in January, so the second meeting, not the third meeting, I guess is the.
I mean, if that's what I can get, I'll take it.
Madam Chair, from staff's perspective, at that meeting, you would like to see proposed language,
Can you bring options?
options? That, I guess, Eric, is that clear from your guys' perspective?
Well, why don't we review what we have through our conditional use permit process? And each one you can regulate differently because they're all individually.
We don't have staff to
Permitted.
regulate it, so.
So
Well, we can regulate it. If you want people to go out there and
You
visit
could
on a
vote
weekly.
against any proposal.
But I'm trying to think of staff of how they're going to put something together.
Right. I think there was been proposals that were submitted earlier on different routes, whether it be limiting it as far as caps or conditional use permit thresholds, but hypothetical numbers that would take some to do. I guess before you set a public hearing on anything, I would want much more clear discussion, because the last time we've had these public hearings, it completely overwhelms the county. I mean, we've got over 1,000 emails, phone calls, comments from all parts of the planet, and it becomes too much for one department to
800 people
handle.
who signed petitions and
Yeah.
submitted. Yeah, so it's a lot of people. So, I mean, the other question is from a procedural, I would want to understand from a procedural perspective, do we need to have another hearing? Do we have to have a public hearing?
You do if you change the zoning ordinance.
go.
You do have to have 2 public
Haven't we already
hearings.
had one?
County.
That
Pardon?
doesn't count?
And most of them.
The public
Not if
hearing
you're
that we've had.
proposing separate individual language to be added into the zoning ordinance. That will require
amend
2
it.
public
Sounds like
hearings.
what we need to do is come to you guys with options, perhaps have working sessions on whatever language is proposed.
Yeah.
And then once the board decides on something, we would then have to go through the normal route of planning commission, public hearing, and then board public hearing with published notice.
Right.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
finally posting it in the newspaper.
And at that point is when I would love to explain to you why do I think what I think and discuss in full why you believe what you believe. And
I don't think 1.5% of the population should dictate business like that.
okay, so
So in January, we'll ask the staff to bring us some options. We're not to the stage of public hearings. We're not, okay.
Well,
Is that okay, Eric?
And Eric, put in your notes, what can we do with the existing structure? Because they are conditional use permits.
They just continue
Yeah.
to exist as is.
yeah,
No,
that's,
but I mean, we have a conditional use permit process and that's how they would be handled. So if we just continued using our exact process that we have now,
And possibly revise it or improve
you
it.
know, what needs to be, that's a regulation
Yeah.
right there.
My point was just
Yeah.
existing farms with nothing, this one.
No,
doesn't
we
exist.
can't, they're
no, that's
They're
right.
in the system. They are,
And our permits have
Permits.
evolved over the
Yeah.
years that we got permitting. They went from
They're
a
permitted.
certain number of conditions to substantially more because we've kind of learned as we've
Right.
gone.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, second topic, discuss the potential cost and capacity assessment presentation. So Commissioner Ward and I went to the public health retreat. The state of Minnesota has a goal of transforming our public health system. They now see public health as not a safety net, but they talk about these 5 foundational areas of public health. And our staff in 2021, maybe it was, participated in something called the cost and capacity assessment, which was done with the help of the University of Minnesota. And they've just released a report. But for myself, as a person who just started attending as the alternate, some of the public health meetings at the state level, I went through the entire pandemic, not really understanding that us 5 county commissioners are the public health board. And knowing now, oh my goodness, that's who we are. I would love for us to get some training, probably just from our staff, on what it means when they say they want to transform the public health system, what those foundational responsibility areas are, and how we did in the cost and capacity study. And it's really just for our education. so.
Well, I think, first of all, Melanie, you can probably send that to all the report Commissioner Myers referring to.
Yeah, this is the one they just released it this week. To
Yes,
Shack
I can
members.
absolutely send that to Heidi to
Yeah.
send to everybody.
And part of part of my angst is that, yeah, it's scary. 5 county commissioners are the health board. We have, nobody on this board is health orientated or educated or, anything. And should the 5 county board members be the health board for Winona County? Should there not be doctors or medical professionals on it? That's a question I've raised the last couple of years.
It's argumentative.
It's argumentative.
So
And so I know how to give shots to sheep, but I don't think they want to be giving them to people.
and I understand this is this is a long-term effort. They are, they're talking about, so right now, from the report, right now, they spend about 4 million statewide on public health. They are talking about needing to expand that by almost 600 million more,
Yeah,
577 million. Well, okay, is the legislature actually going to do that? But it would
George,
be,
have they got it figured out? No.
no, it would be like $100 per capita across the county. But at any rate, I would love for all of us to just become a little more informed about public health
Yeah.
from this perspective.
I would support that going to another full board agenda.
Yeah, and it can happen after the first of the year because,
Yeah,
So-
well, I
so-
think we just need to all get the copy of the report and read through
Yeah,
it. and
check it
then-
out, see what it is.
Yeah.
So in plain English, this is just education and updates. This is nothing specific being asked for at this point.
It's an
no.
enhancement. They want like 10 new employees, Dwayne, that you have to approve tonight to accomplish the
I was
goal.
Well, that would be my only fear, is that this creates just another
No,
phase
but
of trying to.
it is
grow
it is
up.
interesting, the concept, my concept of just giving shots and no, the foundational responsibilities are far broader than that. And I think we probably all want to understand that.
I work in bureaucracies, but this is like jargon, educational bureaucratic speak, potential cost and capacity assessment presentation. What in the heck is that? or whatever else. So
Oh,
It
so,
means more people.
so the
And I'm not
study, the
to
study that
do-
they were doing,
plain English.
yeah, the study that they were doing was to assess how well is the public health system doing across the entire state of Minnesota. And so they collected information on those foundational areas of responsibility. And if this is helpful, so communicable disease control is one,
Mhm.
chronic disease and injury prevention is another, environmental public health is another, lead in houses, stuff like that, maternal, child, and family health, and access and linkage to clinical care, so that everyone has access to actual, clinical medical care. And so they have a series of questions, I don't know, 40 or 50 questions over each one of those areas that our staff answered in terms of how well is Winona County doing.
So this is the framework.
Yep.
Melanie, do you want to touch base on that?
So
We need to look at the report and then decide
Okay.
how much more,
Yep.
But it is, they're trying to enhance public health. The whole thing, Governor Walz says one Minnesota. Well, we're not one Minnesota with equal access to healthcare. And people don't realize in Southeast Minnesota, we pay more for healthcare because we have the great
Yeah.
Mayo system.
Because of
People don't
Mayo.
realize that. But then you go into this very west or
Mhm.
north, anywhere else, there's limited access.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's
okay.
part of the
That
capacity
makes
too.
sense. In today's New York Times, there was an article about America's decreasing, longevity, especially how embarrassing ours is compared to almost every other modern industrialized country. It talks about how our lifespans are actually shrinking in America for a variety of factors.
Yeah.
So, and if that's what we're talking about, like, what if anything we could do about it, that would be an interesting discussion. So this is just for further information in the
Yeah.
future. Okay.
Yeah, if we get the whole report and then we can,
Take a look at it.
again, we're short a director too. I mean,
Yep.
of the whole health and human
Yep.
services, Melanie.
Next year would be
Doing a
fine
good
with
job.
me, right?
Sure.
Melanie, is that okay?
Several months from now.
It's nothing
would be
that's
totally
going
fine.
away.
Yeah.
And,
And to
Yeah.
Marcia's point about, and Chris's point about, we're the public health board, et cetera. I mean, we do take advice and, information from, it used to be the Public Health Advisory Committee, but now it's combined into Health and Human Services, et
Right.
cetera. That used to have
it's
a
own
doctor and nurses and et cetera. So that was more focused on
health.
that.
And that's why I've said sometimes maybe we need to
Yep.
split those again and get more
Oh,
focus.
sure, you just go to
Dr.
YouTube, all
Dr.
kinds of
Andy,
stuff.
Andy's, he's a great source of information, but yeah, he retired now. So,
Yep. Dr. Dean's awesome. Yep.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next topic, discuss discuss possibly participating in the Honoring Dakota project. I was approached by the director of our county history center. She talked about a project that is drawing to a close and Dwayne, I know you know about this too, because
Just a little bit.
yeah, because they've been working to get the school involved as well. But so Prairie Island Indian Community, Goodhue County, Red Wing, and then some other community partners in Red Wing. And the goals of the project, and the goals are going to be the same here. They are planning to bring it to Winona County, and they're in the process of figuring out how it might be different than what it was when it was in Goodhue County. But the goals are stimulate conversation and discover aligned commitments, to strengthen relationships through the means of community engagement and cultural exchange facilitated with proper representation, to support practices that result in cultural competency within our communities individually, organizationally, and systematically, and to identify joint projects that are mutually beneficial and further our goals. They are not asking for money. They have funding for all of the activities that they are intending to do. What I saw is that Goodhue County's Health and Human Services Department was a partner. Now, they probably in their work in Goodhue County perhaps deal with more members of the Dakota.
Midwalkerton.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. Or Prairie Island Indian community than we do. Nonetheless, we do have residents in Winona County. So the idea would be ways that the county could potentially include maybe some of our staff from Health and Human Services, or maybe from the Sheriff's Department in some of those cultural competency trainings. As a way of maybe improving our ability to really kind of enhance our relationships with the Native community here in Winona County. So the goal would be not for any money, but really, I think they're asking us, would you like to be a partner? And I
Sure.
think it would involve probably staff attending some of their planning meetings and deciding if it makes sense as they decide what kind of trainings they're going to do. Do we want to have any of our staff, or does the sheriff want to send any of his deputies, or does he want to be involved? That kind of thing.
When you talk about sending staff, do they have to go to Red Wing or
No, I
can they
think-
Zoom?
I
Will they
think
be
it'll
doing
probably
Zoom
be here.
Here or here?
Yeah.
Because sending staff somewhere, that is money, when you send staff.
Just staff time is money.
I'm still actually, I know very little about it. I was helping set up a meeting between Carrie Johnson and some folks in the school district, but I still know almost nothing about this. So I support it going to a general business meeting, but it would be helpful to have us know like what this means. Are we just sponsors? And if we want to involve staff, I think we should make it optional. We should, provide here are training opportunities, but not require them to do it. It's just say, I think we need to learn more like the basics of what happened in Goodhue County. Like, what does it mean? But not require staff to make it an optional, because most of our staff are still overstretched, et cetera. But
And I think so they were just wrapping up the Goodhue County project earlier in October.
Mhm.
So it's possible as that gets planned, maybe we could bring it to a full board and actually ask a representative from the project or Carrie to come
Sure.
and speak
Or
with the
just,
full board
yeah,
about
put
it.
up a couple summary, a couple bullet points on
What's
one,
expected.
on a one
If
page,
if
yeah.
we're joining what's expected of
a
us.
one-page summary, like what this means.
Timeframe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on the History Center and the group that's planning the expansion to Winona County in terms of when it would be helpful to them.
So can we also wait until after the new year and
It's up to, yeah, I think
I
Trying
can
to-
reach out to
Carrie Johnson?
Carrie
Yeah.
and ask her.
What's their timeline?
Oh, yeah, what they're specifically asking of us, yeah.
Okay.
I support the idea and the concept, but also look to just some more details. I also don't know what this means as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that she said to me that the city is participating as well, and
And it's different than the Dakota, homecoming. This is something different. Yep. So, okay.
it is. I mean, if I understand,
Homecoming already happened?
Yep.
yeah, it
It
did.
was
Yep.
late summer.
Late summer, early fall.
If I understand, her goal in initiating the project is that she wants to reinterpret the displays and that has some artifacts, which, to say this in the right way, artifacts that are probably inappropriate to have. They should probably be returned to the families of the individuals who are deceased. And that for her, I think this whole process is a part of doing it in a respectful way and being able to represent the Native community in writing and in displays at the History Center in a way that is culturally appropriate.
Okay.
I mean, I think she will move ahead with this project whether we participate or not. Okay. The last request is to discuss the potential strategic planning meeting. We haven't, our policies say we'll do it every year. We haven't done it since 2019. And now that we have Commissioner Elsing and Commissioner Begley here, do we could have a strategic planning session for the board?
It's like herding cats. What are you gonna do, Ms. Holte? How do you want to do this?
Well, my thought would be to contact AMC and see if they have a presenter. who-
I'm sorry?
AMC.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've had individuals from there before. To have someone other than an internal staff conduct it.
Facilitate. We did this a number of years ago. A
Mhm.
couple times we did this.
We attempted, yeah,
Yep.
it's been an attempt. Maybe we need MCIT because it's a risk management, so we don't kill each other.
Okay,
High risk.
Last time we had the Office of Conflict Resolution come down from the state.
High risk meeting.
If it's done well, this could be very valuable, or it could be a waste of 2 or 3 hours, but hopefully
Yeah.
we can make it valuable.
Okay, so I'd like to see it. Mr. Elsing, what do you think?
I guess I'm game, we give it a whirl.
Get your warm fuzzies out and figure. Yeah.
No, it's not, well, it doesn't have to be warm fuzzies.
So-
So, is there a better time for that as well?
After the first of the year, like in the first quarter
Sounds
of
good.
2024.
Sounds good.
I would say AMC would probably be your best bet. And they talked at the regional meeting, the pathways curriculum and such. So
Mhm.
I'm sure somebody through that or
Mediator.
would.
Yeah.
It's like acting as a mediator.
Yeah.
Facilitator, yeah.
Correctly.
Okay,
Right.
that concludes our business. So
2 minutes.
we are adjourned. Commissioner Ward will,
Just 1 second, please.
Page 14.
Yes.
I have a
okay.
paper copy
I've got,
from,
I got it. Fine. Thank
I'll
you.
lend it to you.
Call the order. Approval of the minutes from September 26th, 2023.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Commissioner Bagley, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve the meeting minutes from September 26th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, chairperson's report. There's just ongoing at the state. It seems like every day there's emails from some health department at the state of Minnesota. They're working on getting a lot of different funds and grants and this capacity all working together. The only, as I said in the earlier meeting, the part of this capacity is and all this new money in a lot of these cases, all this new money that the legislature handed out, it's not to do better at what you're already doing, it's to do more. And so it will become more and more of a challenge. And with that doing more tends to be people to do more programs and everything. But I know the public health is, and we've said there's inadequacies across the state of Minnesota. We are fortunate. We live in a good place. And we have healthcare coverage and everything, but there's a lot of communities that are short-sighted. And one example of community needs, Kitson County, very northwestern county. You sneeze, you're in Canada or you're in North Dakota. One of their big things that is high priority for their public health is foot clinics. They have a lot of people that for some reason have a foot problem. So they've always dedicated money and successfully run foot care clinics. And yeah, yep, take care. Well, the older you get, you got to take care of your feet too, because if you can't walk, you're in a big problem. But then in other parts of the state, that doesn't fall on anybody's radar. So public health is very, it's driven by, local need and local assessments. Moving on then, consent business, we have 4.1 to approve Minnesota Department of Health 2023-2024 Bridge Access Program immunization and vaccines for uninsured and underinsured adult vaccine. Melanie, do you have just a 2-second? You want to say what that's all about? It was quite a document, so it was.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. So this specific contract expands the underinsured and uninsured adult vaccine program to administer the updated COVID-19 vaccine.
And we can then administratively bill the $40. And is the vaccine
Correct.
coming to us still free? Are we paying for the vaccine?
So the vaccine has now since been commercialized.
Okay.
This is the way that individuals who are uninsured or underinsured can still receive that vaccine.
Okay, we're not doing any.
We're no longer doing mass vaccination clinics,
Okay.
correct?
Okay, all right. There was one thing in there about incentives. We aren't giving any incentives to do this, are we?
We are no longer giving incentives.
Okay, all right, because we needed a policy if we were, and I didn't think we were. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussions?
I'll move to approve it.
Want to do both at the same time or do you want to do one at a time?
Should we do both?
Well, we can. 4.2, approve Minnesota Department of Health 2024 towards zero death safe roads. And I know Mr. Peterson works with that, but that's a statewide program that's been going on for a long time.
Correct.
And we get money and it's primarily education, I think.
He gave us a
Right,
presentation.
a couple of months or so ago.
Something like that.
Time time before, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
So
all right,
I'll move to approve both of them.
all right. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve both 4.1, the bridge access program, and 4.2, the towards zero death safe roads. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right. General business. So we got a few minutes. Are we a relatively healthy community?
So we did the community health needs assessment in 2022, and that identified 4 health priority areas: mental health, health equity, social connectedness, and healthy behaviors. Right now, I'm working with 2 students from Winona State University to provide an update on where we are in 2023 to see if we've improved within a year. So once I have that information, I can share that with you all.
Just an interesting side fact. My husband had scheduled we talk about dental. Dental is always a problem, access. And you all know what dental is near and dear to my heart, having family members in the dental profession. But he was trying to get a cleaning and they had to cancel, and he could get a cleaning at a local I don't know where he was going, but cleaning in October of next year.
Oh, my God, really?
Yeah.
Send them loose. Send them loose.
Seriously. I mean, I couldn't believe they were calling because they had to cancel his appointment. And they said, well, we can reschedule you for October of 2024. Or you can go to one of our competitors. And they gave a name for a competitor and he can get in tomorrow. But I mean, I couldn't believe that you would even schedule for almost a year to the date out. But we know dental is, and Melanie did do some good things. We got the bus that came through last summer.
Yep, the mobile dental clinic.
Yeah.
And then Houston County formed a dental collaborative, so they're going to have more community clinics in their county. So we'll have some resources locally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I mean, I heard that bus was like that, like immediately, all of the spots were taken.
Yeah,
So there's a very high demand beyond
Demand.
that.
there's a demand, but it just, there aren't enough providers and
I know one of the Winona providers expanded up to Lewiston.
oh, okay.
Yeah, Walnut Street Dental.
Yeah,
expanded up there.
But I think it's a problem, of course, workforce is they can't hire enough
That's a big-
people
yeah,
and they
I've heard
can't
that
get
too.
enough people through the dental profession
Hygienist, I think,
schooling.
is the big one.
Yeah, the schooling to fill the gap of those retiring and those that need. And yeah, your mouth is a conduit to your whole body's health. Remember that.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Melanie.
My pleasure.
Anything else to come before the health board at this time? All right, stay healthy. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you. So years ago, my dental hygienist said to me, if you go, like, where do you take your pet to the vet, right?
Yeah.
And I go to Pet Medical Center, used to be called Central Animal Hospital. And she said, there's a chart on the wall, and she's right, there is. And it shows how if you get dental care for your pet every winter, how it like extends their life. And she said, it's no different for you.
Mhm.
And they should have a chart on the wall here because taking care of your teeth is that important.
Yeah.
Maybe that one, like, that's you get your pet health dental every year. That's how we buy a new car.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck, I got 2 dentists in the family. I still can't get in anyway.
Yeah. No, that, so up in Lewiston, Walnut Street Dental, Bullards, that.
Oh,
Walnut Street-
Bullards, yeah.
Bullards, I mean.
Yeah.
Alicia and.
Brad.
Brad.
That's where I go.
So they,
Started it.
yeah,
'cause
a couple
Flint
years
used
ago.
to-
Yeah, no,
Flint
and
used to be
they
there.
remodeled.
Welcome, everyone, for coming in the middle of a rainstorm. We start our meetings off with a public comment period. And so anyone in the audience and people participating over the internet can share their thoughts with the county board. Please try to limit your comments to 2 minutes. So is there anyone here in the audience that would like to make a comment to the county board? Please step forward. Please just step forward. Tell us your name and address for the record.
I'm Jerry Zinke. I'm the owner of the property where the proposed cell tower would be located in Odine.
And
Sorry.
your address is?
42846 County Road 12, Dakota, Minnesota. When I would only speak to one aspect of the tower, and that is this for the safety of the children in the school. I know that some of the folks, the parents, are concerned about that, and I went and got a tester for it to test the signal strength, signal strength, and tested various devices as well as went out to Ridgeway where there are two towers. One is right in Ridgeway, one is about a mile west of Ridgeway, and another one halfway between Ridgeway and Nodine. And at those towers, standing close to the towers, the highest reading I could get was 0.026. This will become relevant a little later, but at the Ridgeway School, I got a reading of 0.002 to 0.003. The reading moves around as you take it, so it doesn't stay just one solid reading. But that was from the two towers by Ridgeway and the one halfway between. I also tried the tower on the county property across from the Quick Trip, and there again got quite a low reading. I also tried some devices, Chromebook, it was 0.04, a laptop was 0.4, a Wi-Fi router for in my home is 5.0 to 7.0. A cell phone is about the same, 5.2 to 7.2 with my cell phone. This is the device I used for checking this. The highest reading I could get from anything was a Bluetooth earpiece, and that was 10.0 to 11.0, which is quite high relevant to the tower readings.
Mr. Zenke?
Yes.
I apologize. We do have a 2-minute
Okay.
time period. So could you wrap it up in a sentence for us?
Well, there is a transmitter on top of one of the Cotter School buildings here in Winona, also on top of the residence hall at the university. So one block away from the one at Cotter Schools was 0.126. And that's when I was in visual contact with the tower.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Is this the appropriate time to offer comment on the tower?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
With 2 minutes in line.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yep. My name's Ralph Weingarten from Falcon Foster, 678 Front Avenue Northwest, Suite 255, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49504. Here on behalf of the conditional use permit applicant, Hemp Hill LLC. There's been a lot of materials submitted. There's a large packet, so I do want to indicate my availability for questions on any of those items submitted. Some of the things I addressed were the need for the tower location, the limited search area, the focus rate on the immediate community of Nodine. Also with respect to fiber high-speed internet, I realize there's another provider providing that. However, the federal policy embodied in the Telecommunications Act of 1996 is to encourage the build out of robust cellular networks. The prohibition against discriminating between providers is to ensure each company can reasonably build out its network. So in the case of carrier to carrier, you can't say something like Verizon, I'm sorry, AT&T already has this covered. We're not going to let you do something in this area. But you certainly can't say, in this case, Hiawatha Broadband Communications already has things covered in this area. Sorry, we don't need you to do something here in Nodine. I think that's particularly true in the case of HBC because the phone service is a home phone, not a cell phone. The signal's fixed in one place. Cell service is mobile. You can take it with you. It's more than just a competitor for home internet. It also allows you to do convenient things like pull over and make a call, use the mapping function, read a text saying you're wanted back at home right away. But it also gives you a lifeline in emergencies. You can call for help if your car breaks down or if it slides into a ditch in the wintertime. If you have an accident in the field while farming, if you've got a health emergency, It also gives you instant alerts, like weather alerts in the field. So if it says tornado warning on your phone, you can switch over and check the radar and see where the box is. The National Emergency Number Association indicates nationwide over 80% of emergency calls comes from wireless devices. I see I'm out of time, but I just do want to say also, your ordinance does not contain specific provisions or performance standards for cell towers. So we've endeavored to find a good location that's set back more than what you require. You just require general district setbacks, and we've gone further than that. We've also presented a structural letter indicating it would fall within 50 feet. We've got a parcel that's close enough to the road where you're not going to have access issues in the winter, and you're using existing driveways, so you're not creating an additional access point. And also the land kind of goes up and then slopes down 16 feet to the site. So that's kind of a natural berm. So that along with the trees and homes and things along the road help mitigate the visibility. And also I wanted to offer up another thing too. I noticed there was concern mentioned in the past about lighting. And we can do a tower lighting deflector. They're like stacked plates that make sure the light goes up and out and not downward. And so we're willing to accept that as a condition of approval as well. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience who would like to share their thoughts with us?
Sherry Erdman, 39598 Maurice Drive in Dakota, Minnesota. Why did our government stop funding research for radio frequency radiation in the 90s when over 20 other countries continue to this day to research their harmful effects? Why does our government have a law in place that won't let us use health issues as a reason for saying no to cell towers? Why does anyone in this room here tonight, including the cell tower reps, think it's okay to put up a tower knowing that at the very least, there's research out there that is inconclusive? If there is even a remote chance that our children, our family, and community members might suffer adverse effects from radio frequency radiation, why are we even here? We can't plead ignorance any longer. Information is at our fingertips. And the information shows the evidence is there. Article after article relates this evidence. In 2020, a New Hampshire State Commission investigating 5G issued a detailed report concluding that wireless radiation, quote, poses a significant threat to human health and the environment. The recommendation they gave was that all new cell towers be at least 1,640 feet away from any residence, school, or business. More states have followed as they are concerned about the health and safety of their citizens. I urge everyone here tonight to go home and do their own research. Look up the studies of the firefighters in California. Go to the Environmental Health Trust website. They have letters and testimonies from doctors and scientists that tell of significant health risks to humans and animals. Finally, contrary to what Mr. Weingarten said in the conclusion of his supplemental application, this project will not benefit public health, safety, and general welfare. People all over the world are starting to wake up to the dangers of radio frequency radiation, and they are starting to fight back. This tower should not be anywhere near where our children go to school and where our community members live. Thank you.
Thanks.
Andrea Erdman, 42743 County Road 12 in Nodine. I'm against the placement of this tower. It is too near the school and would be a danger to school children. The easement causes an excessive burden to the school and church. Also, our property values will go down for those who live near the tower. They said themselves in the approval criteria that it can't be separated by distance or screening from adjacent land. There are other locations in Nodine that would not be as close to the residents, church, or school. Please vote down this proposal and require Hemphill to find a new location.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Ed Walsh. I live at 45593 Lost Valley Drive in La Crescent in New Hartford Township. And I don't think anybody in the community is against cell towers per se. The folks in the community are against the location of this specific cell tower. And as I read section 5.5.4.1 of your zoning ordinance, and specifically subsections 2 and 3. Those two subsections pertain to whether or not the tower is compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent land so that existing properties will not be depreciated in value. I don't think any of us needs to be a professional land appraiser to understand that putting this tower in the middle of Nodine, surrounded by residences, is going to have an adverse effect not only on the value of their property, but on their quality of life, which takes us to subsection 3 of that section. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties. I'd also speculate that there's no one on this board that would want that tower in the middle of his or her subdivision or residential area. As the folks in this room have shared with you, there are locations in Nodine where this tower could go up and not have the adverse effect on the people in that little town, and it wouldn't have the adverse effect on their property. So I'd strongly encourage you to follow the terms and provisions of your ordinance and deny this application. And the last thing I would ask is, would everybody in the room who is against this application please stand up? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in the audience?
Hi, I'm Darian Frickson. We live at 40221 County Road 104, Dakota, Minnesota. I as well have 3 kids that attend St. John's Nodine, as well as myself and my husband, who have been members. I'm against the tower location, and I just want to revert back to what I said last time about ethics and morals. I think that we live in a world right now that, seems to be government driven, and that's okay, but we do have to stick back to what's ethically and morally right, and the location of this tower is absolutely not that, in my opinion. It will cause excessive burden. My other question is the easement that was granted, is the driveway even built to withstand the highway department standards for these trucks and construction equipment? I read in the packet that they submitted that the Verizon cannot be put on the Minnesota DOT tower because it's a 1.5 mile distance outside of their search area. Well, then I would beg to argue that how is this new tower going to benefit any further than 1.5 miles outside of Nodine? We all know we're in a rural area, and the distance is longer than that. This company does not have to live, work, and engage within our local community. Therefore, they're not going to see the effects the long-lasting effects that are going to happen. We live in a rural setting, natural beauty, and we choose to do that. I wrote a check this year for $5,000 to send my kids to Nodine. We are a private school. We are not publicly funded. Us as parents have a choice. I would just beg you guys, please do not approve the location. Again, I'm a business owner within the community. I rely on this very technology. My family has been longtime family friends of the Zinke family. I understand they are able to do what they want with their property. However, with the amount of land that they do own, I would urge to reassess the location. The only party benefiting from this tower, I would argue, is Hemp Hill LLC. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in the audience that would like to speak?
I'm Brooke Erickson. I live at 42709 County Road 12, Dakota, Minnesota. Probably the closest residence to the tower, or one of the 2 or 3. My wife and I live there. I'm also a business owner. I'm also against the location of the tower. Like we heard about the value of the real estate as well as our quality of life. And I guess I would just like to point out, even above and beyond our local ordinances, is this a government of the people and for the people? And if it is, I think it's evident that the people who live in this community at large, the majority of us are against it. Please deny it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to participate in public comment? And for individuals who are participating over Ring Central on the internet, if you could unmute yourself and you are also eligible to participate.
Good evening. I'm Caroline Van Shake, and I live at 40002 Willfield Drive, La Crescent, which is just a couple in our address is just a few miles from Nodine. And I promised myself I wasn't going to talk to you guys because I've written you so many letters about this thing, but I have to be really sort of practical and in the weeds about it. And it is not to disregard all the other arguments that you've heard, none of the arguments that I've put to you in writing. It's to say that it makes my heart stop to think about 20 plus maintenance trucks driving through a narrow driveway parallel to the church and the school that is the sole entry point for those kids and their families. And the zoning folks, they talked about 4 trips, but this tower is being built for 5 carriers. And so if you read the application, as I'm sure you have, 4 trips times 5 carriers a year is up to 20. So my husband Christopher and I went and measured the driveway on the weekend. It's a 25 feet, 3-inch entryway. The zoning ordinance talks about 33 feet. If you go in the out entrance, which is a gravel road, that is narrows to 16 feet. Then it bends around to 33 foot wide. If you bump right into the bike racks and the flagpole, and then it makes a turn toward the cornfield, and then it's quite wide because you can use the parking lot. So really, without disregarding any of the other arguments that I've given to you about how to understand what the FCC says, how to understand what the Telecommunications Act fully says, what your authority is to not to dismiss the tower per se, but to relocate it, that is your authority. I'm not dismissing a tower somewhere. I have a cell phone like I bet you everybody in this room does. But I am suggesting that it could be in another cornfield in our cornfield county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to participate?
My name is Erica Erdman. My address is 27356 County Road 3. I just want to share one section from the FCC guidelines for you just in closing. Section 704, Facilities, Radio Frequency Emission Standards. General authority, local government. Nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentally thereof over decision regarding the placement, construction, or modification of personal wireless service facilities. Just please keep that in mind while we're going through the decision tonight.
Is there anyone else who would like to participate in public comment? And again, folks online can also participate. And I will ask for the final time. Is there anyone else here at the meeting that would like to participate in public comment? Hearing nothing, public comment is closed.
I will have to ask staff, oh, there it comes. Okay. Because I know some people in the past have had trouble getting in. Now I see all the boxes. Okay. So, all right. Thank you.
Do you want me to ask again? I will.
Well, is anybody got their microphone off? I mean, everybody's got them, they're muted. Okay. I guess we figure they all got in.
Okay. So this moves us to our next item of business, which is to approve some past county board minutes that are on page 16 of our packet.
I'll move to approve the county board minutes from October 10th.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Vegley has moved and Commissioner Elsing has seconded approval of the county board minutes from the 10th of October. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion. We also, next on our agenda, have to acknowledge the receipt of some approved committee minutes.
Move to acknowledge 6.1.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved. Commissioner Bagley has seconded acknowledging receipt of the EDA minutes from September 20th of 2023. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Consent comments and approval of agenda. Commissioner Ward.
I would like to pull for a separate vote items 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8.
Okay.
And then just an update at the end of the meeting from a meeting. Thank you.
And I think, because we have a lot of people in the audience tonight and they seem to be interested in the conditional use permit, I'm going to move these to after
Fine.
the budget and finance updates. So these are going to become 9.5, 9.6, 9.7. Commissioner Elsing?
You pulled the one I wanted, just a potential comment at the end.
Okay. Commissioner Olson?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Bagley?
Nothing, thank you.
And Marcia might say what I'm going to talk about, but if not, I'll reserve a space to give a committee report and maybe a request for board action. Okay. So we would need a motion.
I'll move to approve the amended agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
I'm going to give it to Elsing. Okay, Commissioner Ward has moved. Commissioner Elsing has seconded approval of the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And if anyone's opposed, please say nay. Agenda is approved. Administrator Holte, could you read for us the consent business for the record?
Absolutely. 8.1, approved purchase agreement with Quadrant Incorporated for new postage meter machine. 8.2, approved LG 220 gambling application for exempt permit Winona Sportsman's Club. 8.3, approved LG 220 gambling application for exempt permit for Winona Root River PF. 8.4, approved Minnesota Department of Health 2023 to 2024 Bridge Access Program, immunization and vaccines for uninsured or underinsured adults. 8.5, approve renewal of purchase of service and business associate agreements with Winona Area Public Schools District 861 for transportation of children and youth in foster care placement. 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8 have been pulled. 8.9, approve CREST Initiative Cooperative Agreement and bylaws. 8.10, approve renewal of grant agreement resolution for 2024 towards zero death safe roads. 8.11, approve purchase of service agreement with Olmsted County for specialized case management for potential or existing clients of Anoka Metro Regional Treatment Center and Minnesota Security Hospital. 8.12, approve renewal of interagency agreement for Region 10 contracting services to clarify roles and services provided by participating counties. Excuse me. 8.13, approve renewal of service agreement with Minnesota Family Investment Program for 2024 to 2025. 8.14, approve 2024 towards zero deaths enforcement grant agreement. 8.15, award bid for detention center food service and approve agreement with Consolidated Correctional Food Service. 8.16, approve donations received July 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2023. And 8.17, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the consent items.
Second.
Commissioner Bagley's moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the items on the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if anyone's opposed, please say nay. Consent agenda passes. We move on to general business. The first item is 9.1, approve conditional use permit for Gerald and Joan Zinke and Hemp Hill LLC. This was tabled.
Right. Madam Chair,
Yes.
I will move to deny the conditional use permit for the cell tower, using our zoning ordinance 5.5.4.1. I can start with, and all we have 7 criteria. It needs to just one be a problem, but I have multiple problems, but just using, the use will not, number 1, the use will not create an excessive burden on existing parks, schools, streets, roads, and other public facilities and utilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area. It will. It is, as indicated, very small driveway. It's coming off a county road at a controlled intersection, but very, very limited access. And it will create a burden on the existing school in particular.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Chair, could I raise a point of procedure? I think that what you may want to consider doing, since what's before you is taking action on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, you may want to phrase the motion as a motion to set aside the recommendation and then open it up for you to generate your own findings of fact based on the petition and the facts in the record. Just that way, it's cleaner that, so essentially, because we've talked about this before, about we don't have negative motions. So what we'd be moving is to set aside the recommendation and then the matters before the board to generate the findings that you see fit based on the record.
Okay, if that's what Robert says we need to do with Robert's rules,
Can Commissioner Ward
disagree.
include the denial in
Yeah.
her motion?
Separate.
So the best practice in this regard would be to sort of set aside their recommended findings and sort of look at it, what a court would call de novo, like new, and you would then go through it and decide what you want the findings to say instead of what their proposed recommendations
Okay.
would have been.
I'll move to set aside the Planning Commission's recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Vagley has seconded a motion to set aside the findings of the Planning Commission and to generate new findings for this conditional use permit. Is there further discussion?
Procedural question. So it makes sense what you're suggesting, Mr. Tillman, but when it comes to the second motion, could what Commissioner Ward has already described be a adequate description for what the second motion would be?
Denial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
We need findings of fact.
We need, so the statute requires contemporaneous findings of fact. And so what the best practice would be is for the board to then now discuss each of the 7 factors, cite what you believe the evidence in the record is for or against that fact. And then I can adjust the written findings to make a contemporaneous written record of the basis for a denial. But I would suggest that maybe you don't start from the position of a denial. You just start through at 1, look at each thing. And then at the end, if you see that there's one that's sticking out as the factor is not met, then by statute, by the ordinance, a denial would then issue. So I mean, I guess if you're looking at it with the intent to deny, that's fine. But I guess procedurally and to build a public record, since for these land use decisions are required to have a public record for the basis of them, it would be ideal to go through each factor and list out what the facts are. Because as the board knows, you're sitting in a quasi judicial capacity when you're reviewing one of these. And so you're supposed to be applying the facts that have been presented to the Planning Commission and then apply them to the standards of our ordinance. And then I'm also willing to answer any questions about federal law.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question, but we only need to find one. We don't need, do we?
Well, based on the way the ordinance is written, a denial could be sufficient with one. However, I would urge the board to consider all of the factors and have a robust decision based on consideration of all of the factors instead of just merely finding one thing you don't like and setting it aside based on that, because you want to protect this decision from any potential challenge given the quasi judicial nature of it.
And I want to explain the part of the reason for my second of the motion is Commissioner Ward and I disagree on many things. In this case, I agree with her strongly. This is a case of David and Goliath, and I generally stand with David. We're facing the telecom corporations, the mega corporations, the big businesses, but sometimes we need to, take a stand. And we're not saying you can't have a tower anywhere, just not a tower there. There is other locations, and I wish that after we had tabled it, there was more options that were brought forward to consider. So we're not saying no to any tower. We're saying no to a tower in that location. So just want to clearly state that I stand with Commissioner Ward. I agree with what she said. And I think that we're not saying no to, and I do know it's very valid points about there is a transmitter, is that the correct word, on top of Cotter High School. I'm not sure everyone knows that. Yeah, so we're not talking about not at all, just not that location.
Attorney Tillman and then.
Then
you.
finally, commissioners, before you get into your discussion on this, I would caution you that under federal law, any decision that's based in any way on potential health effects of these towers is strictly prohibited and would be grounds for a federal court to overturn your decision. So I would suggest that you not base your decision on that. I also believe that you shouldn't base your decision based on what other providers are there. We can't get into any issue of potentially discriminating between providers. Instead, we need to look at just the 7 factors that are in our ordinance, and you have to base your decision purely on whether or not those factors are met, given what's been presented by the petitioner. So it's best just not to even talk about those other things.
Just to clarify, I wasn't talking about health. Commissioner Ward was talking
Yes.
about excessive burden on.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Bailey, that wasn't directed at you. I just
but-
wanted to give a warning before the
Understood.
board opened it up.
Gotcha.
Commissioner Elson.
I just, I appreciate our planning and zoning department, and, every once in a while, we just find some things that may not align. And so, I think this is just one of those things that we just, in light of a little more evidence.
Do our microphones?
For all of us or Commissioner Elsie?
All of us? Okay, so we need to pull the mics. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Wear that like a necktie.
There you go.
Where's the beef? Okay, so we got a motion. We got a second.
Yeah.
More discussion, sorry.
Just one legal question. Because we don't have towers in our ordinance specifically. I mean, this is a conditional use permit for a tower, but we don't identify towers as a separate thing in our ordinance. Does that matter?
It's essential. In this case, you have to look at it as any other conditional use in that district. What's in the federal law is there's the part that says that we have the authority to regulate except for any type of regulation that's based on health or allows for discrimination. We could have imposed setbacks in our ordinance. We could have put height restrictions as long as any of those conditions don't effectively prohibit wireless facilities, but we didn't. And so that's the issue, is that we can't, hold this petition subject to standards that don't exist merely because we could have imposed them. Here, it's essentially to be looked at as if it's any other conditional use. If you look at the ordinance, we do have special conditional uses, for example, building on less than 40 acres, and the ARC has different criteria. This doesn't. This is just the basic conditional use permit factors. If the board wants to in the future, certainly you could impose or look at imposing regulations on this, such as setback requirements, maximum height requirements, or co-location requirements, but we don't have those, so we can't base a decision on them.
Thank you.
So the motion on the floor is to set aside the findings and to make our own findings. Many times at the planning commission meeting, they adopt the entire staff report, but is it the will of the board that we would walk through each one of these findings, and after we make this initial vote to review them and create new findings, that we would vote on each finding that we see in the report? So we'll walk through and take a vote on whether we accept or change the staff results for each of the findings?
Yes. The alternative, I have alternative ideas, but I think it would be better for the board to go through each thing and kind of give a sense of what you would want the findings to say.
Okay, so can we vote on this and then walk through the findings?
One question I have with that is, we have a reasonable amount of time to produce the finding of, is it something that we need to line item out right now?
Well, here's where we get into another issue. With 1599, we've already extended the maximum timeline for agency decision till November 11th. The board would then have to meet in a special session to again go through this. And the special session would be subject to the 10-day notice requirement and giving notice to adjoining landowners potentially. And so the problem is, if we get past the 11th, it's an automatic approval by statute.
And we have a very full agenda tonight.
That's a long way of saying, don't do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it now. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would be ideal, yeah, unless you,
But is Mr. Tillman gonna have to wordsmith what we
Yep,
say
he is
tonight?
after we get done.
Okay.
I have something kind of already started,
Right.
but it's got to be the board's decision.
Okay.
Mr. Vagley.
We could go through all, is it 7?
7.
Yeah.
We could do that, or to me, I think we could keep it simpler and just focus on the first one. But if you want to go through all 7, we
I
could.
think Mr. Tillman's saying we need to, and
Okay.
we can.
I think he's saying it's more supportable.
Yeah.
Should there be a legal challenge?
It would hold up better if you go through each 7 and make thorough findings. I would also point out for one, there's been a lot of public comment regarding factor 1. The intent of that, if you look at it, it's the effect on public infrastructure. In this case, the use is a private driveway. So
It
perhaps
says schools.
It says
private
schools.
school.
It's a
And they're
school.
taxpayers.
A school,
I mean-
a school is a school. I'm a public school
But-
teacher, but a school is a school. That's it.
Yeah.
A school is a school.
In any case, yes, I would suggest all 7 be examined.
Okay, we can do
Okay,
that.
all right, so should we vote on the initial
Yes.
vote? Okay,
Yes.
so Commissioner Ward's moved, Commissioner Vagley is second, that we set aside the findings from the Planning Commission and that we explore creating findings of our own. Is there any further discussion on just that topic? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay. So shall we begin this conversation by talking about finding first?
Number 1.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think I already stated it. So the use will create excessive burden on existing parks, schools, streets, and other public facilities. They do have to access a public road. It's a county road, the intersection of 12 and 5. And then it is a driveway, but the driveway is approved by our county highway engineer. And there was evidence of measuring. It probably doesn't meet the normal standards for a construction zone.
I support the findings as were presented by staff. Even if, as one of our people during public comment asserted, it was 20 times a truck might visit that site a year, that does not seem excessive to me. If the board wanted, we could potentially, and if staff felt that it was appropriate, we could put a condition that set the time of when those trucks might be allowed to visit so that we could avoid busy times for the school. So I would not support changing this finding of fact.
I would support changing this finding of fact. And to me, the goal is simple, is to not to deny the tower anyway, to deny the tower there. So I don't want, I understand the intent, Commissioner Meyer, to be more specific about when and how it visits the schools. That I understand that, but I wanted to make it clear that I don't want that tower there. I want it in it. I want them to reconsider. They are a large corporation. And I also want to quickly insert that I really respect Mr. and Mrs. Zenke. They're not doing this for private gain. The profits are being turned back into the church and when they pass. So I really admire what they're doing, because other times it's clearly an issue of private personal gain versus the public good. In this case, I really appreciate what the Zenkes are doing. So it's nothing about the Zenke family per se, but I just want to, where I stand is I want that darn thing moved somewhere else. And I realize that's not lawyer speak, but I just.
So do we make a motion to, okay, so I'll move to use item number 1, the use will create a burden on existing.
And just leave it there.
Yeah.
Perfect. I second it.
Okay.
Commissioners, what I've written based on your discussion is for factor 1, the use will create an excessive burden on existing parks, schools, streets, roads, and other public facilities and utilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area, and then italics, which is your findings. The proposed site is close to a school and would create a burden to the school and the school facilities. Is that the intent of the board?
The school, and then if you want to complicate it with public, it's a major intersection of 2 county roads in a very small densely constructed area. So for large trucks and towers and such to maneuver through public facilities, it is challenging.
I'll just add that I'm looking more, yes, I realize on maybe a maintenance basis, but the initial construction phase, that could potentially be a zoo.
Oh, you have to,
I think so.
you have to get real close.
Commissioner Elson, I had the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know how much closer you want it.
yeah,
Get it.
yeah.
Are you there? Is that better? Test 1, 2.
So I've added,
Joke if you want.
No.
Construction phase. you were
the
concerned.
site has a major intersection nearby and the additional traffic will create a burden to the county roads, especially during the construction phase of the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Commissioner Meyer, I just want to add to Commissioner Elson, I was told the same thing when I first started. That's why I tend to sit up closer, is that I was told that, and that people couldn't hear me as well.
Use
So
your outside voice.
use my
As
teacher
Margaret
voice.
told me,
I
I'm
try to-
talking louder.
Usually my wife tells me to quiet down, so that's why. Yeah, if you guys can't hear us, please let us know.
Yes.
Sometimes there's some pearls of wisdom, usually not.
I've asked you to sit back further, please.
Don't pour any water on the floor.
Let's go on.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner
So we
Ward
have
has
a motion.
moved, Commissioner Vagley has seconded, and Attorney Tillman has provided us some alternative language. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Ward's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, motion carries.
Okay, moving into number 2, the use will not be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent land, so that existing properties will be depreciated in value.
Here it
Am I-
stated the use will be sufficiently compatible.
Well, it will not. I'm saying it will not.
Okay,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
disagreeing.
I'm
with
saying
the-
it will
okay,
not.
I understand.
There are articles of values decreasing that are built too close to towers. You can't screen I don't know what, 200 and some tower. Even if the lighting, as was suggested, it will still twinkle in red and blinking lights there is just no way to screen a tower. And the value and deter development, if a tower would go up there, probably, no more homes would be built on that side of the road. And we're taking farmland out of farming, because if it's tower and guy wires, it's no longer agriculturally used. So again, use will not be sufficiently compatible
So
or separated.
is that a motion?
Yes, I move. Yes.
I'll second that.
I have companion language. Does anyone do you want me to read the companion
Please.
language for that?
Sure.
What I have based on Commissioner Ward's thoughts about the evidence in the record is, I've noted the facility will be located within a half mile of multiple residences in the immediate unincorporated area of Nodine. I've noted other towers that are similar in use and size exist in the county. However, the location of this tower is more intrusive than other similar towers, given that it is close to a school and residential properties and would detrimentally affect the aesthetic value of neighboring properties. Moreover, screening from adjacent land cannot be accomplished due to the tower height.
Okay, you put such eloquent words in my mouth.
Welcome.
I would note that you are not including language that talks about devaluation of property.
Would you like that to be included?
No, I would not. And I disagree with those comments on Commissioner Ward's part.
Well,
And I am referring back to your memo interpreting the Federal Communications Act of 1995, where you're talking about what is the substantial evidence. So what we have is individuals asserting the potential, but no evidence that actually shows property devaluation. And his comment, Attorney Tillman's comment to us is that there's disagreement among the circuit and district courts as to whether lay opinion, i.e. public comment evidence, may satisfy the substantial evidence requirement. So I can't support this either.
So, Madam Chair, based on the Eighth Circuit precedent for Spectrum LP versus Platte County, which is the controlling court for Minnesota, it suggested that aesthetic concerns can be a valid basis on which to deny a cell tower permit so long as the aesthetic judgment is grounded in the specifics of the case and not based on generalized aesthetic concerns. So you would have to find, I would suggest that maybe we don't have any hard evidence of valuation, but perhaps it would have to be grounded in specific aesthetic concerns to property value that are specific to this case, if you want to expound on that.
Well, that's yet to be determined because there aren't any lots for sale. So if we go out there and subdivide it and put lots up for sale, that will be determined. And I have read, again, nothing specific to downtown Nodine or even Winona County or Minnesota, but I have read national publications where properties have gone down in value when there's cell towers or there's sewer plants or there's, water treatment plants or any of these types of community infrastructure. Those lots usually get bought last and they're at lower values.
So Commissioner Ward, a suggestion would be, since we're in a quasi judicial capacity, unless something was presented to the planning commission or before the board, it's outside of the record generally. And
I
so
can live with that. That's I can pull up the report, but
you could read it into the record.
I was looking for it here and I guess I apologize. I don't have, I'll look again. I haven't, but it was
Perhaps
an
it could
article.
be-
It was a news article. It wasn't a,
Your motion may just pass without
yeah.
wasting
But
time.
he's challenging me, so I gotta, but go ahead. Yeah, it was an article that several that I read. Maybe I didn't even make a copy of it.
So if we change the finding to say it could detrimentally affect the aesthetic value of neighboring properties, would that be acceptable
Yeah,
to the board?
yes,
Or
yeah, because it's an unknown, because there hasn't been any sold.
Is there further discussion or do you want to go ahead and vote?
No, yeah, we can vote,
Okay.
please.
Okay, Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Bailey has seconded about finding of fact 2 that it will not be sufficiently compatible, and Attorney Tillman has given us language. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion carries. Third finding has to do with the structure and site will have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties.
Well, there again, the structure will have an appearance that will have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties because it is truly a residential ag farm community. Although towers are, coming, but it will be seen for many miles in all directions. And that is not, the comp plan is to keep that part of the county rural, and that's not a rural landscape.
Is that a motion?
Motion, yes.
I'll second that.
Can you read the language to that?
Can I have a copy, please?
Um, Based on Commissioner Ward's motion, it says the structure and site will have an appearance that will have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties. And then the finding that's been generated is, although the tower is similar to others commonly seen in the county, the placement of this tower and its close location to nearby residential buildings and a school makes it more intrusive than other towers and will reduce the aesthetic appeal of nearby properties and will have a detrimental effect on the essential rural character of the neighborhood.
You're saying
Yes.
the proximity of the tower to the adjacent is what we're really looking at.
Right, because it was presented in the record. Remember, there's other towers in Nodine. And so I think the board, perhaps what is being examined here is how this tower is different than those towers. And I would suggest that what the board's indicated is that it's perhaps more intrusive than other towers in Nodine.
Because of the dense population is what I'd have to say. I don't know that. we've
And
ever-
again, this is kind of what I'm trying to glean from what the will of the board is, but that's kind of what I'm hearing from the board.
Not going to support the change. As a matter of fact, I I think it probably has the potential to increase property values. We had someone come before us when we had our truth and
Board of
taxation
Adjustment.
meeting, and they wanted us to reduce their property value because they didn't have cell phones.
But the uniqueness of the Nodine area is we have good coverage and excellent coverage. And so again, this is, part of this is, is in my idea, it's an equitable distribution of a signal. We don't need more signal there. There's parts of the county that desperately need signal.
Commissioner, I would suggest we don't get into
This
different providers.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Just a clarification.
Strike that
We
from the
need
record.
One? I know we're gonna go through them all,
Yeah, well, all we need is one, but he
and we
wants
have one.
to build
So,
it.
You
I
can
mean,
have several. Yeah.
so yes, but as we go through the list, we could probably not argue as much. Because we already have one that we all agreed on.
Yeah, well,
All
I'm
four of
getting
us.
some,
All four of us, yeah.
I'm getting some feedback, so I'm defending my neighborhood.
Well,
Okay.
Okay, so
that was
we
a
have the
motion.
language?
Supported it.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay,
If that's acceptable to the board.
Yes.
all right, so Commissioner Ward's moved, Commissioner Vagley is seconded, changes to finding 3 as were read by Attorney Tillman. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Nay. Motion carries.
I have to-
4. We had 7.
If we want to deny 4, I would move the use is not reasonably related to the overall needs of the county and to the existing land use. First of all, it is ag land, and our comp plan highly regards agricultural land. And again, that whole thing of inequitable distribution, I think our plan would want, and we've said we're not against towers, but it's the location and other constituent needs in other parts of the county that would rise to higher level. That is a motion too. The use is not reasonably related to the overall needs of the county.
I might argue with you on that one. I mean,
It's okay.
For a second.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm not-
do we need it? Yeah. Is anybody going to second it for discussion, or can I?
We'll let that one go too.
Okay. Motion fails for lack of a second. Finding 4, the use is consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district.
5. Yeah, 5.
Yep, we're on 5.
Okay, so I would say the use is not consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance in the district. Again, this is an agricultural district, farm fields, crop production. You put a tower in that space with guy wires and all the structures that go with it. Do take it out of the ag possibility. It's very difficult to farm around a cell tower. So that's what I would say to that.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I gotta argue that one a little bit too.
Okay.
Because it is,
Permitted, but
yeah, it's in the purpose of the zoning ordinance, meaning that we have to have it for that function and of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. So that it in itself is, I mean, we could speculatively argue the agriculture side, I
Mhm.
guess.
but you need a second to do that.
Is there a second?
I'll let that one go.
Motion fails for lack of a second.
No respect for ag land then, huh?
Well, we do, it just,
You ain't gonna farm around it.
either
Okay.
put it in residential or you put it in ag land. So,
Finding 6, the use is in conformance with the comprehensive plan of the county.
Okay, the use is not in conformance with the comp plan because the comp plan, again, I'll have to state it, the number 1 priority in the comp plan is to keep ag land ag. And again, it's a small parcel, but you're taking it out. It's principle. You're taking it out of ag production. And that's what the comp plan says that's number 1 for Winona County.
that I can second.
Okay.
Okay,
I interpret the first one a little bit different.
Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Elsing has seconded. A motion to change finding 6 about the conformance with the comprehensive plan of the county. You have language for us. While you go work on it, I will say this. Commissioner Olson, talk.
I would say without, you wouldn't even need a conditional use permit to build a large barn there that would take the land out of production. It's a conditional use. So I'm not gonna support the ordinance. You have enough, but I'm not gonna support this motion.
Yeah, I agree in that the comp plan also supports emergency responses, the other items that were noted by staff, through the use of modern technology, coordination of jurisdictional boundaries.
The one concern I have is that if we relocate it, it might need to be put. Now, there's suggestions about putting it across I-90, near the businesses, which makes some sense, but I worry that we may need to move it away from the school and put it in if at all possible, please no in cropland, but we may need to put, if there's a better location, it may need to be in cropland.
Now you're thinking like I'm thinking.
Well, and the comp plan saying we need, and the gentleman brought up the cell making a phone call. Looking at the maps that were provided, the valley still, you will still lose, even at the tower on top of the hill, you will still lose calls going down in the valley. So I don't see it as providing the service that we need, is part of my reasoning there.
Do you have language for us, Attorney Tillman?
I suppose, is the board inclined to leave this factor as is? Or do we want,
I think we had 3 saying.
I'm not going to support the change.
I won't support it.
I won't support this one.
okay, so
Oh, okay.
we won't make any changes to what was 6 and we'll leave that as what was written in the,
Probably vote on it.
Yeah, we will vote. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So all those in favor of changing finding 6 to indicate that this conditional use permit is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
And
Okay.
again, the reason is that we may need to, if it's relocated away from the school, it may need to be in some cropland, so.
Finding 7, the
hopefully not.
use will not cause
But that's not,
traffic hazard or congestion.
okay, item 7, this use will cause traffic hazard and congestion, in particular during the construction phase, and then ongoing. Again, if you've been out to downtown Nodine, the school and the church are a central focus of that intersection. And there's a lot of traffic coming and going, all different times of the day, different times of the year, not even only when school is in session, when school isn't in session. It is a community hub. So there will be traffic coming and going. And unfortunately, when you've got a school and you got small children, they don't always stop and look for, trucks and cars and hazards coming in. So I think it will be traffic. Okay, downtown Winona, you got roundabouts, you got traffic. Downtown Nodine, we don't have traffic. I mean, a couple cars at the intersection is considered high traffic. I mean, it's all a matter of perspective too. I mean, so the phrase traffic hazard or congestion, even a small amount of traffic can be, congestion in a particular building time.
Okay, Commissioner Ward has moved that we change this finding. Is there a second?
I'll second it. My one concern I have is maybe removing the construction is definitely a concern, but the construction could take place during the summer outside of the school year. But the normal, the other times, I think that's a possible hazard as well. So one suggestion would be in what you just described is to remove the construction part and just talk about traffic hazards during the course of a normal year, et cetera. Because I think that they could possibly construct it and erect it during the summer when school's not in session. So.
Commissioner Olson?
And the other argument would be if they're going to construct it anywhere at any time, there's going to be traffic and construction equipment. So even if it was across the road, it's still going to impede on its progress. But so
But with
I'm
it
not
being
going to
a
support the motion.
with it
That's all I'm
being a
saying.
major intersection of 2 county roads, it will be
And near the school.
concern and yeah, right next to the school.
Mr. Elsing?
My only thing is nothing's been shown to me that it's not going to be done or is going to be done in the summer. And that is just my fear. I've been down this road many times with many projects, and it's the construction phase that they're very rarely are they done on time.
Yep, you're right.
So I'm not going to support the motion again, because we could have used the findings of, we could have used the conditions to put some restrictions on when these trucks would be traveling on the road. So I don't think that it justifies indicating that it will cause a traffic hazard or congestion. I think we could have worked with that. Is there further, do you have language for us or did you read it already?
I was wondering, so
We got three,
You're
two,
counting
two,
heads?
three.
I think you got three.
I think you got
in favor, okay, so what I've had based on the discussion, to support the proposed motion, what's been said, I've written, the use will cause traffic hazard or congestion. The facility would generate traffic from tenants leasing tower space who make stops for maintenance. The volume of visits would likely be especially high during the construction phase. Traffic from the site is concerning, given that the site is near a school.
Sounds good.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of, Commissioner Ward has moved, Vagley has seconded, changing of condition 7. Is there any further discussion? And hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries.
Do we need anything else?
Does anyone want to address any of the conditions?
Madam Chair, I think the best course of action would be now, based on your discussion of all the findings, decide whether or not you would grant approval or denial. If a denial is the decision of the board, the conditions would be moot.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I move to deny the conditional use permit based on the discussion and the facts of finding that were
Oh,
discussed.
Commissioner Ward has moved to deny this conditional use permit for Gerald and Joan Zenke and Hemp Hill LLC. And Commissioner Elsing has seconded that. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of this denial, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those who are against or opposed, please say nay. Nay. So motion carries.
Madam Chair, point of clarification. So just to make sure the record is clear, the factors that were left as written in the original draft findings were 4, 5, and 6. And then the other ones are as discussed tonight. And then I will have this for the chair's signature at the end of the meeting.
Sure.
All right.
Or usually I get it tomorrow.
Tomorrow is fine too.
All right,
Okay.
so we might want to, if the people want to leave. Or you can stick around for the rest of our, we've got more important stuff to discuss.
I'll
Thank
talk
you, everyone,
louder, I
for coming,
promise.
and thank you to
Drive
the folks from
safely. Looks
Hemphill.
like
Thanks
it's
for Mr.
done
Zenke.
raining.
Careful for deer on the ridge.
Yeah, that's for sure. Next item is 9.2, under department recommendations, to rejoin the discussion and provide direction on space consolidation and potential new public safety facility. And what we had asked for at our last meeting, so we had asked for some research on potentially privatizing the license center. And we had taken a vote on consolidation of public health, but there's some new information around that topic. So I think probably I personally like to revisit it. And we made a motion on not leasing general storage space at Hawkins Ash and bringing the storage items to the county building. And I don't think we need to revisit that. And we then tabled the discussion. So should we start with the license center research? That sound good?
Yep.
So administration has given us a few paragraphs to look at it's on page 270 and 271 of our packet. So personally, I think that we subsidize the license center to the tune of about $45,000 a year over what the state provides us. I think it's well worth that service and I wouldn't want to lose it. It looks like if we said we didn't want to continue to keep it at the county, it would, the state would ask the city if they wanted to take it over. And if the city did not, then they would go through a process of putting out ads to see if they could find someone who was willing to take it over and run it. My preference is still to keep it and to keep it under, run it as a county. Commissioner Elson?
Two thoughts on that. Is it required? Is that the process statutorily required? Or is that just, hey, this is what we want to do, or that's what we normally would do? I'm just trying to figure out, is there a legal process in which there is to follow?
Yes, so in your board packet,
Yep.
page 259, we inserted the rules, 7406.0360.
Page 259.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I saw that. I wasn't clear as to if it was just procedural or, if that's like, this is what you have to do. What, it has to go to the city in which it's located first. They have first dibs at it versus,
I'm going to ask Auditor Treasurer.
yeah. Did you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I understand. In that statute on page 259, if you look at subpart 1, subsection C, when the county board and the city both decline, then the state commissioners appoint the next public interest, and they'd run an ad in the paper. The Department of Public Service was called, and that is what they described as the practice.
So basically whatever city it currently resides in has first dibs. So if this would have existed in Lewiston, they would have first dibs at it, not Winona, city of Winona, correct?
If it was located in Lewiston,
Correct. So
yes.
whatever city its physical address is has first dibs. Okay.
Correct.
That-
I would
that
also
was the
note we
part
would
that I
have to
didn't know
close
was-
it first.
It kind of was like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure that. So this is statutorily, they basically go through these two steps. Is there some sort of a time frame that they generally say, hey, typically it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years to find?
The state said that we would be looking at it would be closed for at least 3 months because they have to allow the city to decline it, and then they have to open it for a period of time, posting it in the papers in the local area. And then they would have to decide. So it would be closed for probably a minimum of 3 months.
And when are we required to be out again?
The end of 24,
24, so yeah, a year.
theoretically.
Theoretically,
Yeah.
right. So I mean, we do clearly have some time with this.
Commissioner Vagley, and then you, Commissioner Ward.
For the staff, for Ms. Wilbright and Ms. Holte, in terms of direction from the board, do we make motions on the specific? Because before it was committee of the board, now we're at a general business meeting.
Yes, you can make a motion.
Would motions help you at this point?
Yes, we need direction
Okay,
because this is a domino effect.
gotcha. And my point is that we do have time, but we also need to make decisions in terms of everything that's interconnected and overlapping, et cetera. So I will make a motion to keep the license center after I am interested in the general concept of privatizing it, but in terms of all these interconnecting issues, I think that we need to decide and then move on. So I'll make a motion that we keep the license center as a county service. The tricky part then is to figure out where it fits, but I would like to keep it as a county service.
So that takes off, would your motion take off in all future exploration? The only thing we're exploring now is just where it's going to relocate to.
For now, yeah. I mean, someday we could re-examine
I don't feel like
privatization.
we really have any answers to that. I guess we could wait for the second and then have a discussion, huh?
I'll second that for purposes of discussion.
Commissioner
So,
Ward, and then you, Commissioner Elson.
So is there any monetary means to enhance the revenue to make up the $40,000 deficit? I mean, we have user fees, we have convenience fees, we go anywhere. You go to a restaurant now, they tack on your tip and everything. Is there anything we can legally do to,
On our end,
on
we
a
aren't in
very small
control
scale,
of the
a buck
fees.
a customer or something to collect or something like that?
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
At our level, we aren't in control of the fees. Those are set at the state level. But
don't think that our current budget fully projects all of the revenue because in 23 and they're phasing in when these fees are going up.
Yep.
So we don't have a good estimate to go off of based on
You're
what,
thinking they'll.
I think the revenue will be up slightly. I don't think it will make up 45,000.
That alludes to my point, if I may.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
you were next.
Yeah.
I think it was.
I
So that alludes to my point. I don't foresee the deficit getting better. I see it continually getting worse. And so, I mean, obviously that's the trend we're on. And like you said, even with the increase in fees. So I just would hate to throw out and look at other counties that are doing this. Like you said, I believe it was stated about half and half now. That's privatized and half of it's this way. There has to be something where it's just to throw out and be, well, let's keep it. I want to keep the service in Winona. I just don't know if it's the best interest of the taxpayer to have it taxpayer funded. Why not privatize it? And the same people that are working.
There will be, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, the same people there now could turn right around and apply for a new job. You know, I don't know how they're going to run it more efficient than us, but I would imagine the private sector could figure a few things out. So I just hate to throw away and go through all the work of trying to find a new place, relocate it. Obviously, we have to build it out and do what we need to do, only to say, hey, we wish we would have done this, because all that cost is now going to be incurred into an already failing system that we don't foresee it getting better. So we're willing to incur all this new cost of relocating. I just think we're at a golden opportunity to take a look at what other counties have looked at and say, so I agree, I want to keep it here, but I just want to I would love to explore privatization.
Mr. Olson?
If a private entity had it, can they demand and charge service fees separate from? I've heard of this, and again, it was just something that was brought to my attention that private places will say we have an automatic $15 service fee on top of your tab fees or whatever.
I would have to do more research to know if
I've never.
my personal assumption is that they'd have to, our deputy registrar, whether private or public, would have to follow the Department of Public Safety's fee schedule. But I can't say that for certain.
I know in Houston County, because of I think they voted on it today. I don't know what the outcome was, but they're gonna go down to half days because they're getting somebody's background checked and it takes a long time through the state. And people are up in arms about it because it's kind of always been a county provided service. There's expectations and they're going down to half a day until they get somebody background check done. And people are up in arms about it.
Well, people should be up in arms because we're open 8 to 4:30 and anybody working a regular job can't get there. So that's a deterrent right
So
there.
I guess I do.
Wait, Commissioner Olson, are you?
No, I'm not done, but
Okay, yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead. Go, Commissioner
You have the floor.
I do, I'm gonna support keeping it because I just always, I think we have car dealerships that do business here, so it is a service to our taxpayers and to our businesses that we should continue.
Commissioner Olson?
I just again look at the incurred cost of moving, relocating, rebuilding. The continued trend to go this way. I want the service for Winona County. I can speak on my own behalf, having a lot of vehicles, trailers, trucks, whatever it is. I can literally go up to a privatized service in Rochester, be in and out in 10 minutes most times. It is very quick, it is very efficient, and they compete to be quick and efficient because they want you to come there. That's the thing, because they're not guaranteed to have it, right? And the county can take it back if they want. So they need to kind of say, hey, we're doing a good job, because if the complaints come in, hey, as a board, they can do what they can do. So to me, I think it actually could potentially, and I'm nothing against anybody that works at our current system, but I think it could, again, I go back and say there's reasons why they're doing it. And they now have to worry about a space and a location. And and all those things. That gets put on them, and it's one less thing that we have to do. So I want it. I agree with the car dealers. I agree with the convenience. I agree with all of that. But I just don't want, if we go stick a couple $100,000 in retrofitting something or whatever it's going to take, then the argument's going to be, we just did that and we never go exit. We put all this money into it. Why do we not want to look at it now? And so we got a golden opportunity sitting here. We do have a time frame in which to do it. So I'd hate to rush this thing, cancel it out without at least exploring it. My problem I have is that it's the cart or the horse. We almost have to say we don't want it, offer it to the city, and then find out whether somebody wants it. Well, that ain't no way to do that. It's not a way to conduct business or government or anything. So is there a way to explore somebody else that may want it on an unofficial basis just to obtain interest? And this might be a question for you, legally, to say, yes, a party would potentially be interested. If we passed it to the city denied it, that party would be interested. Right now, we kind of got the cart and the horse situation, chicken and the egg.
I guess I could take the matter under advisement to get a better idea of the regulations. But my initial thought is if there is a regulation from the state saying that the city has a first right of refusal, it could be potentially unwise from a liability perspective to be making business negotiations with a private entity that we couldn't follow through on. It could give rise to claims of estoppel or some type of contractual type thing. If they're led to believe that we're offering them something and then the city of Winona were to come in and say, actually, we're going to operate it, and then these persons would be foreclosed from opening their business. Could be liability if they incurred expenses, based on what we represent.
And that's what I'm saying is there a way to do this with avoiding all that? So at least we can take a look at it. I hate to keep going on a road that's costing us.
Administrator Holte, thank you.
Commissioners, I'm actually pondering, I don't anticipate the state would want to do that scenario of seeing if there's interested parties. I mean, if we decide that the county doesn't want to continue providing the service themselves, that starts the action for the state to then, this is going to cost them time and money is what I'm saying. And I don't think they're going to be willing to just do it just to see if we have interested parties. I mean, once the ball's in motion, I mean, I don't think they're willing to even go out and post it unless we give an official, we want to close effective this date. That's how I read this.
Yes, that's the
rule.
start of the process is.
And if we're not prepared to give a closing date, I don't think they're going to take action.
Commissioner Elsing, then Commissioner Olson, and then you, Commissioner Ward.
So completely understood. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't waste of time, right? So my question is though, even if we said, hey, we don't, for an effort of, I mean, it's crazy that we actually would have to say we don't want it just to explore options. That seems more inefficient than anything. But we can always come back and say, okay, we changed our mind and we want it now, right? If we explore, the city says no, private sector says no, all right, fine, then we'll come back and keep right on doing it. So that's a time frame in which that would happen, which 3 months is what I heard. Is that
In
correct?
your reading, can
No,
we
have 3
go
months.
back on
Go
it?
through that.
Can we, like Mr. Elsing mentioned that Rochester could potential, Olmsted could take it back from the privatized. I didn't have anything, I didn't read anything along those lines. So I think once we say we're done with it, we're done with it. I don't think there's any take back.
Receive interested parties, then it closes, is what I interpreted from the information.
That was my
Well, it
interpretation as well.
wouldn't make any sense because let's just say one of those closed and the county said, well, we have no license center. We'd like to reopen one on the, there's no reason we can't go open one back up again.
I'm not saying
Commissioner
we
Elsing,
may
then
not.
Commissioner Olson, then Commissioner Ward, then can you, Commissioner Bagley. Okay, Mr. Elsing, are you surrendering the floor?
Surrendering the floor.
Okie dokie. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, I guess I've heard you say it twice that we could always take it back. We don't know that. The state function.
Right.
We are we're at their whim, at their will. We are providing the service for the state. There's no guarantee. The more that we've talked about it, the more I think we should keep it. So I did second it for discussion, but I'm becoming rapidly convinced that we should keep it.
Commissioner Ward, then Commissioner Bagley.
On the budget, does the state require us to have a certain level of service? Is there any demands that we have a certain level of service, being that we're doing a state function? Like so many hours, so many people, the turnaround time, the transmittal of the, the funds and everything. What's the restrictions the state puts on us to run this?
I know I might defer a little bit, but I know that there's spacing based on how many you have. I would have to look into, are you talking like what services we provide within that?
Well, if we're going to have to, and I understand that the desire to have it here in the county, and it does make some sense. I personally have the flexibility to go someplace else, actually closer to my home than Winona. Yep. But can we somehow still provide this service? If we have to move, can we downsize it somehow and still, provide the service? Again, like Commissioner Elsing said, we're going to have to move it. So that's going to be money. You have to move the computers and everything. That's, everything's time and money. We're going to have I don't know for sure how many people we have out there now. I mean, is there any way that we can move into, and it's a pretty nice space. I mean, the people have agreed it's a pretty nice space, but space comes with a big price tag. Is there, if we need to look for a new location, how can we still provide the service maybe on a lesser of a scale? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I assume that it's sized for the demand.
Right. I don't have the statute in front of me, but there are size constraints for based upon the amount of transactions and the type of transactions that
The
we
problem is
fulfill.
the
If we
state of
reduce
Minnesota hasn't seen fit to adequately fund that function.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, and so your association, auditor, treasurers really need to hound, that we can't keep providing these functions without, neutral costs to us. I mean, because they're getting all the money. I mean, I think licenses, the tabs already jumped considerably. I think Governor Walz saw fit to that, but we aren't getting any more of that. Or do we get a percentage of that?
There are various fees that jumped.
Begley and then you, Commissioner.
And the dollar per transaction for your license, for your tabs, that comes to us. There was a $6.75 increase in the driver's license fee when you go to renew. And then you are correct on new vehicles. There's a big spike too, but I don't know what percentage is.
We get more.
Or if it is an increased percentage to us.
I guess there's unknowns as far as the
Correct.
revenue.
The revenue, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Begley.
I wish this was like an isolated decision by itself, because I actually would be interested in further exploring it and not rushing it. But it's part horse in the cart, but it's also, this is not like a linear sequential, like we do this. We have to like figure out 5, 6 things at one time. It's more like a Rubik's Cube. So I think in order for we can move on to the other issues that we for now, because in my mind, what I'm thinking, and this is also a long ways from happening, and there's a whole bunch of other factors, is in terms of like an expanded or remodeled LEC that might have a public safety space that's the license center might be a part of. So in my mind, that's how I see it. But if it was by itself, I actually would be interested in further exploring it. But this is part of the larger space issues that I think we need to, for now. It doesn't, and definitely not forever preclude the possibility of other things. But then again, if we build something for it, we should use it. But I think for now, in order to continue on to the other conversations, we should maybe make a decision on this. And it is a subsidized service. It is a public good that, unfortunately, Commissioner Ward is right. It falls on public taxpayer dollars versus state dollars, et cetera. I wish it wasn't that way, but I do view it as it's a public good that the county does subsidize. And I also wish that there was longer expanded hours. So I almost would go the other direction, not shortening the hours, but expanding the hours. But that's a different conversation for a
Close on
different day.
Mondays and open on Saturdays.
Mr. Elsing.
And I see it a little bit different where, we have the ability to take it off the public taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see costs getting any cheaper. And we're at the mercy of the state to dictate how we get paid. Privatization of most things generally can be more efficient. And I got to disagree a little bit, but I do understand where you're trying to go, because to me, it's a little bit of the opposite. By passing this motion, we're basically moving forward under the pretense we have to make a space for it. That's the hard part.
Or lease.
Or lease,
Yeah.
right, which now puts us in a position to accommodate, it has to be accommodated into that, which now disregards any further exploration down this road. I would love to see just, I look at the locations in Rochester. I know how small they are. That room where we stand ain't any wider than 4 feet by 20 feet. And sometimes there's a line out the door, right? And sometimes there isn't, and it depends. But they move quickly because there's 7, 8, 9 of them people just hammering things out. I'm not saying that we have to do it that way, but boy, if that's the size limitation that the state has, that's pretty small for the city of Rochester. And there's only 3 of them, right? So per capita, we've got to be pretty big for how we sit. So I would have to think that size limitation. So then I go back and say, do I want the space? Let's just say it is the LEC. Do I want that to encompass that? Or would I rather have it for things that they need? Do I take the $50,000 and go buy a squad car? Or $50,000 to tax to offset something that I could give to the private sector? And now I have that $50,000 every year. I'm just using the LEC and our county sheriff's department as it means that, hey, this is going to get put into this building. So that's mine. So I can't support it based on the pretense that I believe it's going to shut down further discussion of privatization simply on the model of
For now.
we have to do it.
I will say that this is a lobbying topic that came up at the Minnesota Intercounty Association Board meeting a week before last, I think. And I told Matt Massman that we are in this exact situation. And so he made some notes. So he may be contacting you, Chelsea, or perhaps you, Administrator Holte, to help him with lobbying at the state. Yes.
That is good information to know. I also have reached out to McCatfo as far as there's a lot of other people in my situation, and if I can network and get us to a better bottom line, that is absolutely my goal.
And I want to clarify, when I talk about a possible public safety, I don't want to scare the sheriff. I'm not talking about shoehorning it into the existing. It would be an expanded, remodeled
He
building. So
doesn't look scared.
I don't want to stick it in his closet or whatever else.
How
Administrator
big your
Holte.
office?
Commissioners, the one good thing in doing the research on the License Center privatization is that we were able to confirm that the register, as part of applying, they make sure that a privatized location would be in Winona County. So they do have control over that. And that's where it says they have to approve your location.
The state,
So that,
you're saying the
yeah,
state?
the state has to approve your location. So that part we were able to affirm that it will stay here as to where that we.
You
don't
know
have.
they're going to go to the most dense part because they're going to be after the
Winona.
other. Yeah, there you go. Increase that traffic problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously they would stay in Winona. It might fall in good view, but I mean, they would stay in Winona.
But previously, we didn't know if there'd be any control over someone privatizing and taking it out of Winona County. So that was one good thing we did find out.
Commissioner Ward?
I'm trying to think, where else do you go to get any kind of licenses or anything in your daily lives? So if you want to fishing or hunting, you go to Fleet Farm and they can do it over the computer. There's the recorder or the Bob Amenick's office, they issue marriage license and birth certificates. And is that a losing proposition too? Probably. And just trying to think other places that tie into licensing and everything, and if there's any, ability to consolidate all the licenses and permits. And I think we need to really look at the Wisconsin model. I mean, I don't know how many people come through just to get their tabs. I think we discussed that briefly, that Wisconsin, you get tabs in a kiosk. Do you know how many, Chelsea?
I don't know the quantities for our location. Kristen and I have discussed the kiosks because that is an option in Minnesota, but I think we need to determine where we're going first.
Yeah, I just don't know if it would take, if a kiosk or any consolidation would take a
traffic.
Yeah, it would condense it, but it would, save some money somehow. Maybe it would generate some money otherwise with less, like a kiosk isn't an employee. You don't have to hire an employee to be the kiosk does the work. And if that would take some of the burden off the existing staff and do some of these other things, or just, yeah.
Rochester Courthouse still takes care of birth certificates, marriage licenses, things like that, but you can't go do anything vehicle related. You have to go to the other ones to take care of those things. So that's more on the human side. This is more on that side is what I understand. And that's what I've done that myself personally.
Yeah.
I hesitate in comparing too much with Rochester because I don't know what services they specifically provide. I know at one point Wabasha had a couple of the services, but if you they would do tabs and things like that. But if you needed a driver's license or transfer a vehicle, you'd have to go to another location. So on a scope of the size of some of those Rochester locations, I don't know that we're comparing apples to apples for the quantity of services provided at the license center.
I can verify the one I go to does all.
Okay.
So, and it is a room smaller than this one. So I'm not saying, I don't want to use Rochester.
Yes,
I don't want to use but that's what I know. I don't know what anybody else has, but I got to respect the fact that if we were making money at this wouldn't be a conversation.
Right.
Commissioner Ward?
So, Ms. Holte, we're talking cart, horse, all that stuff. Do we have any idea to pick them up and move them? Minimum, forget leasing or anything, minimum, what's the cost to just even physically move them, rehook up the computers and move the desks and things like that? A minimum, do we know what it
Minimum?
costs?
I would say at least 100,000,
Yeah.
at
okay.
least.
At least, and that's not any leasing or
Right,
renting space.
right.
Okay.
Is there further discussion? Motion on the floor is made by Commissioner Bagley, seconded by Commissioner Olson. It is to keep the license center as a county service. Further discussion,
Yeah,
Commissioner Ward?
well, we've had discussion here that we're closing a door for any privatization forever, or can we somehow still leave that a little bit open? I mean, we're keeping it, and if we move them and lease a space, well, then it's a package deal. You just, if it's not within a county government building, you just, sell it to them and have them lease it. I mean, I don't know if moving it and relocating it, if it's not a county building, really closes the door for privatization. They could just take it over. I don't know if we can put that in the motion or not. I hate to close that door to still do a privatization.
I think for now, we need to move forward with the
All right,
assumption
Commissioner Olson and
I'm
you,
sorry.
Commissioner Bagley,
I
sorry.
just quick question on the ground rules about revisiting something.
1 year,
1 year, but isn't there a,
if four commissioners. want to-
Significant new information.
Or four,
Yeah.
or a super majority, I think, too.
so that would give me some level of comfort that if something came up, we could revisit it, or if we had four of us to do it. But for now, I'm gonna support keeping it.
Commissioner Bagley.
I think that we should move forward with the assumption that it will happen, but we'll see how other things work out, et cetera. Because I also would be open to revisit it if things X, Y, and Z don't work out, or how they. And I literally don't have this figured out in my head at all. This is definitely a work. We're juggling balls as well as horses and
I
carts.
thought you're a teacher. You have it all figured out.
Juggler.
Wasn't in the lessons.
Okay, further discussion.
It's a separate licensure.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Hey,
Motion does carry. Next item relates to consolidation of public health into county office building from their current location at the Parkview office building. I want to apologize. I had shared incorrect information with you at our last meeting around this topic. And so we have an update from our Administrator Holte about the topic.
yeah, now, was there a separate email? I thought there was something separate came, not what's in the board packet. They had
So
new stuff?
271.
Is that the new stuff, or is that I read?
Since October 10th, county board meeting staff has expressed concerns regarding the
Yeah,
potential.
that I
component.
remember. Yeah, 271 in here.
Yeah.
271?
Yeah.
That doesn't look right.
Do I
does
have
it?
the wrong
No,
page?
Bill?
David?
76.
That's this.
Okay,
277?
yeah, all right. That, it's a printout from the previously unamended packet.
Yeah,
obviously.
when you amend packets, it
I know.
creates,
Yeah, we can all deal with it.
Do you want Ms. Holte to begin or?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I've spoken with a couple staff members since we discussed it at the committee of the board. And even though and at the committee of the board, I asked, is the staff okay with this? And and at the time, the conversation was yes, but I've talked with I've seen feedback from a number of staff and that's not the case. So I'd like to make a motion to leave public health in the, how would you state that? At the Parkview
Parkview office.
Parkview office space.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
So we had talked about potentially moving it here.
Yes.
And what were the concerns with that consolidate that space?
There was a handful of reasons from the staff about why they think that it's best to, and correct me if I'm wrong, handful of reasons why the staff feels like it's a better fit for them out there and the clients that they serve.
And that is in the paragraph on 277.
I don't see a 277 either.
No, that's.
My packet is
No, that's-
257.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not
277.
right.
It's earlier than
257?
that.
All right,
Yeah.
257 is
All
on
right.
my packet.
It's,
Okay, I was gonna say, I remember reading
Oh
it,
my
but
goodness. You're absolutely, yeah.
no.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right there. It's at the
Find
top
it,
of
yeah.
257.
yeah, okay.
But, there are pros and cons to each scenario.
Yeah,
So I was
that's right.
just
Yep, exactly.
trying to figure out when we look at a space we already own versus a space again we have to lease, are the cons so much greater than the pros that, we can retrofit a location, figure something out and go from there. So I was trying to get a better feel for, rather than a 2-paragraph, as to continuing to spend 40,000 or whatever it is that we spend to be there for a small little 2,000 square foot location.
At a nonprofit.
But did we not pay to remodel that space? Or was that built into the lease?
I'm not 100% sure. Mr. Leffey is on if you wanted to ask him.
Does he know?
I'm unsure if we paid anything to remodel that space either.
We didn't hear you, Aaron, I'm sorry.
I'm unsure if we paid anything to remodel the space at Winona Health.
I'm thinking we did. Pat, you don't,
for some reason, I think we did, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah,
I thought there was some additional costs that we had to pay for.
well, so if we've made an investment, and then to pull out of the investment again, and public health, logically, it does make more sense to be right in the health atmosphere, and taking care of the clients that need to be. And you talk about if we pull everybody back here, it's going to be more of a parking nightmare. People don't like park, we're small town and that they want to park right in front of the business that they're going to do business
More
with.
than 2 blocks is a hardship.
Yes. So we're a small town in that respect. But again, we have
The health part.
Yeah, I know.
it's healthier to park at the far end of the lot.
Transportation.
Complaining about walking.
Yeah. But I guess I would kind of like to know if we made an investment when we moved out there. I was thinking we did, to make it work for us as far as because I think it was new space. And Melanie, I wasn't on staff at the time, but the space is designed for our particular needs, correct? I mean, I haven't been out there for a long time, but I did go when we first moved in there. The space is convenient for us to do our job there with exam rooms and things like that. And it's easy to access from a parking. And is it easy access for mothers with strollers? This building is horrible for a mother with infants and strollers to come up those steps or wait for that very slow elevator. It wasn't thought.
Yes, okay, so
designed.
Commissioner Ward, then Commissioner
Yeah,
Elson.
so, okay. I guess I would like to know if we made an investment in the facility before we moved in. If we've got, if we move out, we're losing that investment into a space.
Administrator Holte, what's the lease on that, the length of lease?
44,000 a year.
Yep.
For
how
It's
long?
a 2.5% increase
It's
annually.
got an escalator, but how long is that?
Is it open-ended or is it?
That's our commitment for that. This is what I'm wondering. And the reason why I ask is in light with everything going on, we might be best to just status quo for now. Revisit that down the line because we would not consider putting this into an LEC or something else. We're not going to design a new facility for this. So this might be a status quo, but unless we're locked into some long-term lease, then I would consider.
Said here.
Commissioner Vagley.
And I, yes to all those things. And I just want to add that I, no disrespect to anybody else, but I strongly value the views of the frontline staff who work there. And the arguments weren't based on big and bright and, you know, shiny. It was based on customer service, public focused reasons why. So
To piggyback on that, the one thing that I can see is that, again, I go back to the comfort level of people coming in and out, and the hospital's an accepted place versus coming in here and other people. So I can see that. But at the same time, we got to evaluate who's paying for it, and it's the taxpayer. So we do need to figure out if there's an opportunity. But if the length of the lease is long, I would.
It's April 30th, 2024. Our
And-
lease ends.
And then how long is the arena go? How long was this existing lease? Was it
5 years.
5 years? So we'd be looking at another 5-year lease.
We'd have to negotiate.
We could negotiate a shorter lease and then go that route. Okay. So can we just note that? I'll agree with keeping this. If we note that we potentially renegotiate that lease to a shorter term based on the need to move. And again, I think we got a few bigger fish to fry.
An opt-out clause without
There already
penalty.
is an opt-out.
Without penalty.
Without penalty?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Okay.
I think they want us there. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they do.
I
So
believe they
maybe we
would.
should negotiate a lower lease.
Yep.
Rochelle, how bad you want us there? Come on, give us a break.
I do think it'd be a good service to keep there.
Is it further discussion? Are we ready to take a vote?
I think we're ready.
Okay, Commissioner Vagley's moved. Commissioner Ward has seconded, leading public health at Parkview Office Building. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. I don't think, but I'm listening to you all, that we need to revisit the general storage leasing at Hawkins Ash.
Thought we were moving it here.
Yep, we aren't going to talk about that again. So then we're coming down to the big item, space consolidation and potential new public safety facility, which we tabled at the last meeting.
Well, for me, I don't see anybody from the city here or online. Was there any correspondence as to the use of that $7+ million they received from the state legislature?
I did not receive additional information.
Commissioner Olson?
Didn't this, weren't we gonna have a task force?
That's the
That's the
item.
next question.
Oh, sorry, jumping ahead.
I was curious about the order of that myself.
Well, I think if we decide that we're just going to consolidate, then there doesn't need to be a task force working with the city.
Right.
Well, I
Kind of need to,
the
kind of
cart
need
before
to,
the horse.
That-
yeah,
yeah, something like
kind of
that.
need to
Chicken or
know
the
if they asked, if they found out anything.
It's one of those informational pieces that
We need before
They
we
have
can.
George and
Oh, Mr.
Jeff Lima.
Jeff.
Yeah, Administrator Holte.
My understanding, and again, Mr. Ubel did not respond back to me, but my understanding is that it was very unlikely that they would be able to utilize that money to remodel.
Commissioner Ward?
I got somewhat of a different signal. I said it wasn't my decision to be made But I did reach out to some local legislators and they thought it probably could be reworded. But there again, I didn't talk to the author. That person didn't call me back. But I had a senator and a representative thinking that would be a possibility. There again, that's why, but I said, it's not mine to pursue. I said, I just need a very broad, do you think we could? And it's up to the city to do the real ask.
Yep.
So if they haven't asked, then that kind of tells me that they don't wanna.
Commissioner Vagley, but then you, Administrator Holte.
Do you want to go first?
I just have a quick note.
Please.
I am not insinuating that Mr. Ubel hasn't asked.
Right.
I just don't have a response to say different.
Sure. Yeah, that's okay. Good. Thank you. That's telling me a lot though,
Mr. Vagley.
because we asked.
Yes. I think that we're not committing ourselves to anything. We're not committing ourselves to 32 or $28 million buildings. We're just continuing the conversation about a joint facility. So I'd like to make a motion that we continue the discussion about space consolidation and potential new public safety facility. But in terms of what we're talking about, Mr. Ubel's presentation, I watched it on YouTube afterwards. That was an interesting change in terms of that even made it more. And again, I don't even have a final idea. I don't even know myself where I'm going to land on this, but I think it's important that we continue the conversation with the city and look at possibilities, especially if it's a smaller, non-$30 million project, et cetera.
I'll second it.
Again,
Well, and I don't know if I can support it because I thought they knew we were, and I point blank asked Mr. Ubel, will you ask? And with the lack of any response, I'm very disappointed.
I'd just like to, I mean, it's a simple, I mean, there's millions of dollars on the line to not explore that option.
we don't know that he didn't. We just haven't.
But I'm just saying, we don't have any evidence back or to not have any conclusive evidence that's
In
even
this
an
case,
option.
absence of evidence is not evidence of absence of asking. We don't. We don't. I wish that we
It's so
knew.
late for
I'm
that.
sorry. I need more coffee. I hope that sounded right. In my head, it made sense.
Hey, Chris, did you get that?
No. I need-
Pretty heavy for 8 o'clock at night.
So no evidence.
Oh,
So commissioners,
Oh, wait, no, but I think Josh is ahead. I'm sorry. I think Commissioner Elsing's ahead of you, but
No,
And then it's-
I'm in the same predicament. It comes to these, it's like taking the first bid that comes along. I just, you'd never do it. So you really got to know what your options are. And I just don't think we've answered that question yet to figure out, is this even an option before we start going down this other side? And that to me is where we start and we begin to veer out. It's very similar to why did I agree to looking at keeping the health facility at Winona Health, because we might want this room for taps. And now I just left myself an option and bought myself another opportunity. So I'm doing the same thing here, saying I hate to start something, start going down that road, lose focus of a very basic answer that I don't believe it has not been presented yet. Whether it's known or not known, I don't know.
Madam Chair, so based on this, I've looked up the appropriations bill, and I believe I found the language that gives the city this money, the specific text, and I can share this with the board after. It says, for a grant to the city of Winona to acquire real property for a site and to design a regional public safety center to co-locate police, fire, and other public safety entities. And that's the 7.5 million. Based on that, arguably they would have to acquire real property to unlock the money, and they would also have to co-locate fire as a part of it too, to unlock the 7.5. However, I guess you could talk to the state legislatures. Maybe they'd give us some type of an exemption from that.
So they said that's what was indicated, that the wording possibly could be changed. Again, it was very, very preliminary.
But the motion is just to simply continue the conversation, doesn't commit us to anything. It's just, because if we turn down this motion, the conversation essentially ends, doesn't it? And we don't want that because we simply need more information.
Commissioner Olson, yeah.
And by saying a joint facility, it can be joint right there.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think we should continue. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and support it. I hate to keep having the conversation at the board meeting. So I also am going to support the task force. I think though we have made some criteria clear. It looks to me like, regardless, we have to spend about 4 million on the LEC, and that doesn't include the remodeling for processing of evidence, secure evidence, and interview rooms, right? Which are all things that need to happen. So there are outcomes of a task force that I wouldn't support, not 12 million. But I did hear something different from Mr. Ubel when he was here. And so I do feel like there are potentially some other options available. And I do want to explore those. It doesn't mean that we would take them and I've made my point pretty clear a number of times in these conversations that I am only willing to spend so much money. I want the county to be able to do other things as well. Commissioner Ward.
Okay. Evidence, you got jail cells, you can lock up or records and such, you can lock up the cells and put your records in there and such. So I truly don't believe that we need to spend 4 million to make it some usable space, but that's yet to be determined.
So the 4 million is like just the boilers and the pumps and the chiller and the.
We have the sheriff and the chief deputy here, and you didn't want to move, Ron. You said the space works for you. And I go back to the whole idea of why would I move? The sheriff is the key responsibility for that $28 million jail, the running of it, the supervising it. If the water pipe breaks or the prisoners get out, he's the man we go looking for.
They're both equally important.
We go look for Aaron.
No, we're going to look for Ron. So again, I guess what I heard is that space is workable.
If we go back.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, right after we started the project with the jail.
Yep.
Digging the hole in the ground to start it. The question that was posed to me after it was posed to Tom Williams was, do you have enough space at the LEC? And my comment was, yes, I have plenty of space. I have an annex that's now empty. It's used for storage. It used to be storage before we remodeled it. I have the jail itself is going to be empty, so I have plenty of space. So the space is adequate.
Right.
Nobody asked me what I thought about the building itself.
What do you think?
Okay,
about the
what do you
building?
think of the building?
I won't say what Jeff wanted me to say because he was willing to give me
Historic.
It's
Remember, it has
historic.
Historic value. Preservation is big here in Winona.
When I gave you the tour, Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
I mentioned a couple times, we've kicked the can down the road for years. When Dave Brand was sheriff, a lot of things didn't get addressed or fixed because we were pushing for a new jail, which I thought was pushing for a new LEC. To keep the police department with the sheriff's office to house our inmates in a secure facility. We had many discussions. We had many meetings. We brought in the federal government to do the pony for us and the honey and all that. I always thought we were going to build a new LEC. So I don't know. I got off on a tangent here, but what do I think of that building? It needs a lot of work, and we've kicked the can down the road for years. We didn't address things like I showed you in the tour, the boilers. The building itself is 50 years old. The plumbing is 50 years old. The electrical is not up to, I won't say up to code, but it needs a lot of work. And really, Mr. Lafee could answer a lot more of those questions than me. But the building is old and needs a lot of work, and we haven't put any money into it because Sheriff Brand and I thought we wouldn't be in there this long.
But how important is it to you to be next to your brand new facility from a management operational standpoint, or would you rather be several blocks away?
I would like to be right there.
Okay. That's what I. had heard.
Okay, Commissioner Vagley, and then you,
Just to be
Commissioner.
clear, what I'm thinking is not several blocks away, not even 1 block away. It's just a really remodeled LEC.
Right, but the
Right.
the city wants to go pro building.
Yeah, do
That's
they?
a
Not,
couple.
I mean, those are the bigger, somewhere between the Taj Mahal and like a
Okay,
new
that, I
coat
guess
of
that's
paint
all I've ever
is,
heard is.
to me, there's a
I
lot
heard
of,
something different.
I heard from watching, and I wasn't here, but watching the YouTube taping, I heard something very different, that it's a remodeled and revamped and not just, again, somewhere between a new coat of paint, which is this,
Yeah.
there are some law enforcement officials who are, not these two gentlemen, but are skeptical that all we're going to do is like throw on a new coat of paint and call it remodeled.
Okay.
Somewhere between that, which is not acceptable, and to the Taj Mahal. there's a whole-
But Mr. Ubel's lack of giving us any clarity for this meeting is
We need to
problematic to
simply
me.
create more time for us to have more conversations and not assume that a lack of information is him. No, the city folks seem to be very interested in this conversation.
I think so. And I think they're willing to be
They've already
more of a
got task
partner. Okay, Commissioner Elson. If you were done.
No, I don't, Christian Ward, I'm not thinking anymore $28 million a block or two away, thinking a bigger
Okay.
remodeled LEC
Okay,
with more space. There's a brick and mortar cost, and there's also the staffing cost over time. If we could, I think it's important we keep them together and maybe look at,
Yeah.
Commissioner Elsing, and then.
sorry.
You,
Actually,
Mr. Mueller.
I'm gonna
Deputy Mueller,
turn
and
it
then
over if I can
Mr.
have it back when he's done.
Attorney Tillman is raising his hand too. Oh,
Deputy Mueller wanted to say something.
I'm gonna
okay, go for
relinquish
it.
the floor as long as I get it back.
I just want to make the point so it's not misunderstood that when Ron says that there's adequate space for the sheriff's department at the LEC, I think that is the position. That's not to say we're saying there's adequate space for the police department or whatever their needs are. They have a position as to what the space they need is. And they've expressed that, I think, pretty thoroughly through different meetings and everything else. So I don't want it to be confused and there to be any misunderstanding that when Ron says there's space at the LEC, we have adequate space. For the sheriff's office, we do. Police department, I don't have an opinion on that, even if there's adequate space or not adequate space for them. There's decisions to make for that. Just so that's clear.
Is it fair to say that there is space, but there's also a need to update and there's a need for maintenance on that space?
Much less whether there's any, if there's the question as to whether there's enough space for the police department is a separate question as to what updates, maintenance, remodeling, whatever it is that building needs is a separate question from the space needs that the police department needs.
That alludes back to several things. First of all, we don't really know yet. That's why we're trying to gather this information a little bit. So this could allude to why we need this task force. But at the same time, there's a little bit of a stance difference that I've seen since this, hey, the task force has determined whether we go move over there or not. I'm looking at this now a little bit and saying, hey, we've got this opportunity to take this. I've seen these things with significantly larger numbers than $4 million put in front of me before. And generally that's a high type scenario. Talking to, and I go back to the palatability, gentlemen, of just the common consensus of the community, the sheriff's department, hey, you got a new jail, now you want to go do this, right? And my thing is I look at it and say, I think it needs to be explored. We need to figure out, what the city needs are, alluding to Deputy Mueller's comment, and then looking at the true cost of this, and then going back and saying, is $4 million for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever it is, until new funding comes into play, or we outgrow the facility based on population increase, whatever it might be, because I don't really know necessarily if the county is going to, we're not moving up in numbers of people, but perhaps crime continues to go up. So my thought on this is I could see the need for the strategic group under the new consensus that we're actually looking at doing something with the LEC. And I have to believe that a very nice remodel of that facility to keep the city involved with us is going to be much more economical than going and building a new location and segregating for the next 30 years exactly what our sheriff said he doesn't want to do. Doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if, did I state that well enough?
Yes.
And public palatability.
Well, that's
the
what I've been
price
saying all
tag.
along. Public
The price
palatability
tag.
is very low with
Yeah.
this right now.
Well, yeah.
And so, you know, and I get why, but at the same time, we can't just do nothing. So we have to figure this out. So my consensus is, although those numbers are there, believe it or not, when I was just freshly out of college, I was actually the one that put some of the sprinkler system in the basement of that jail. So
So
I
it's
know
your-
it.
It's your fault. The
You
sprinkler
know it.
broke.
Deputy Mueller.
Just to make a point to that is, I understand completely the sentiment of you just built a jail for 28 million. 100% understand that. But at the time the jail was built, there was other discussions too that were happening and other issues that weren't addressed with that building. And those issues don't go away and still have to be dealt with, even though the jail was built. There was different options, discussions on the table when the jail was being built to potentially take care of all this at, of course, a higher price tag. Those decisions didn't happen. The jail was built, you still got the issues.
And that's what I was alluding to. It can't just disappear on its own. So it's still it's the functionality of the system and the retention of the location and the city in with the county that's very advantageous. So now it's, I believe, the board's position to figure out how to, Commissioner Bagley says, fresh coat of paint at Taj Mahal, how far up the scale we need to go with public palatability and based on the needs of your facility and what that is. And again, it could turn in, because I'm not in sole control, it could turn into something that this is a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan until we tear the whole thing down and start all over. But right now we got a jail to pay for, and we're just trying to keep the peace, you know? So I hope you can appreciate the predicament we're in too. So.
Okay, so is there further discussion or are we ready to vote?
So restate the motion.
Okay, so
On what
Commissioner
I'm voting
Vagley
on.
moved and Commissioner Meyer seconded to continue discussions with the city, looking at the options from a new facility to consolidation.
But basically,
Well, wait now, new facility.
Well, for example,
Remodeled LEC.
I mean, are we talking across the street or are we talking anywhere within the Winona County?
at the LEC,
At the LEC?
Possibly
we add
expanded.
that
yes,
to,
LEC.
okay, so
All right.
discuss,
You narrow the
continue
scope.
discussions with the city about the options from a new facility to consolidation, but all at the LEC.
Is that where we're at?
That wasn't part of the emotion.
No, do you not like that? I think Commissioner Ward was saying that.
I just have a request that you restate your motion.
There we go.
what-
Go ahead.
Well, the motion was what you originally said,
Okay.
Commissioner Meyer, in terms to continue the space consolidation discussions with the city regarding the possible joint new public safety facility. But I just assume leave it there. But what I think of doesn't mean a brand new building a block or two away. It could be a remodeled, maybe expanded LEC that would take in other space. But but again, we lack information. We need to have more conversations with the city and others to look at possibilities. But I'm not thinking of $28 million building, but I don't want to exclude anything quite yet. That makes sense.
And anything ultimately comes back to us for a
Yes.
vote.
So just to continue the conversation.
Commissioner Olson?
Oh,
You, okay,
I'm supporting it.
So it's not to form a task.
So that's the next
That's
one.
next.
That's the next one.
Okay.
We won't need it if we don't. Okay, so,
So we're just continuing the conversation.
Yep.
all right, so all those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Does anyone say nay? Okay, motion carries. Item 9.3, discuss potential creation of a public safety building task force. Mr. Vega, you want to lead us off here?
This would be one way to continue the conversation, is to create a public safety, actually to join a public safety building task force that the city has already somewhat begun. Was it last week, Monday? They had a meeting and they've already appointed 2 city council members to meet with some county staff. I'd like to propose that we also join
Can I
that.
ask who
City Council Member Hyman and City Council Member Borskowski. So I don't want to, so I'm going to make a motion to join or to join with the city in this public safety building task force with the county administrator, with the county sheriff, 2 commissioners, along with the city staff that they've appointed. And I'd like to afterwards suggest who the commissioners are, that 2 of us, but of course, this
Okay, the sheriff, the administrator,
and 2 county commissioners,
and 2 commissioners?
unless you think somebody else should be involved.
Aaron,
Not at this
you
point.
want Aaron?
You want facilities?
Or
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Aaron Lafee as a building
So we'll say facilities.
facilities
And then
manager?
obviously other staff could be there too in terms of,
Yeah. Okay. Is that a motion?
yes.
All right, I'll second it.
So I think we should vote to do it or not do it, and then decide who's going to be on it. If that makes sense.
And the intent is to explore all options.
That would come back to the full board. This small subgroup would meet, who knows, 1, 2, 3 times, and would bring back, nothing would be
I think
agreed
it'll be more than that, but okay.
Yeah.
I think, before I wouldn't have, with the direction I saw the city going, I would have had a hard time supporting that, both where in light with, although we still need the answer to the question, what can the funding do? But in an effort to continue the conversation, knowing what our sheriff has said about wanting to stay there and the fact that the city's willing to explore working down that avenue, I can support this a lot easier than what I could before.
Okay.
So.
All right. Further discussion?
Disappointed we don't have an answer tonight from them, but
Don't disagree.
it's okay.
Right. So hearing no further discussion, this motion is to join the Public Safety Task Force that was formed by the city. And the proposal is that the sheriff, the county administrator, 2 commissioners, and a representative from facilities would be representing the county on that committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay. All right. Now, Commissioner
My
Vega.
proposal would be, and this is up to the full board to decide, is ideally we'd have 1 city commissioner and 1 rural commissioner, if that was doable. I don't need to be the one to do it, but I'd be willing to do it, but I would gladly defer to Commissioner Olson or Commissioner Meyer. And of course, it also depends if Mr. Elsing or Commissioner Ward or Commissioner Elsing would want to do it, but
Mr. Elsing, would you do it?
What's your timing?
Yeah, it's a timing situation for me right now. I know I'm going to be traveling a lot. Normally I would be all over this, but I do agree that'd be nice to have a rural and a position. So what's yours look like?
I can make time. This is
Yeah.
of importance to taxpayers.
Unfortunately, I mean, you probably heard my conversations about Western, I want to be dedicated
makes
to
total
it. And I
sense.
don't think I just can't 100% commit, but I value what comes back.
so I like to, propose if Commissioner Ward's okay with it, Commissioner Ward and I were to serve on this, if that were to be okay with you.
It works.
Is that a
And
motion?
Yes.
I
I'll
second
move
it.
to appoint Commissioner Ward and Bagley to serve on this task force. That would
I'll
do.
second it.
Elsing, a second? Okay, great. Further discussion?
It would, to clarify, Captain Obvious, it would only study and discuss. Everything would have to come back to the full board first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't have the meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, at 8 o'clock.
Hey, you made it to
Dark out.
Oxbow Park in the middle of a
dark. I know,
rainstorm, for
it's
God's sake.
dark in the morning.
Administrator Holton,
I'll let you finish your vote first and
Okay.
then have a follow-up question.
further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 If anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Administrator Holton.
Thank you,
So-
Sheriff. Thank you, Chip.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We did seek a couple of dates from the city for the 2 representatives of the council. And the times that we have from them are October 26th, 8:30 to 9:30, October 26th, 2 to 3, or November 2nd, 3:30 to 4:30. Do any of those work for a first meeting?
Commissioner Ward, can we talk?
Not the
Can we
26th.
talk afterwards and see, I will say what works for you and the
What was-
sheriff and others?
The 26th is not a good day.
Okay.
And what was the
November
other one?
2nd, 3:30 to 4:30.
I'll need to look at calendars too.
Sure.
The second is
Just
more
trying to
open.
coordinate.
Yeah, okay, just give us a doodle poll and we'll give you our choices. No, not really.
Oh,
You
actually,
do
that
like
works.
doodle polls?
That works,
They
that
work.
that
Everybody
works sometimes.
hates doodle polls. Okay. I personally could use a short break. Can we
Yeah.
have 5 minutes?
Yeah,
All right, we're adjourned for 5 minutes.
it's hot in here.
It is warm up there.
It's probably outside.
It's very dark out there now.
Probably a $4 million improvement needed.
Yeah, just keep moving so that the lights come on.
Yeah, how do we get the lights to stay? Yeah.
No, we didn't.
There's this, and then it goes back to
We
these
just have to
couple
negotiate.
of
No.
outside agencies.
Nothing back to like.
Yeah.
4 to 1. To meet them. And.
I was lucky you get to get out of here.
What's that?
I'm here till the end. You're here to be.
No, we.
I heard the
we
short
have
release.
decisions. Yeah.
Okay, I thought they said they were fine, short.
Yeah.
Remember on the calendar, Marty.
Houston County Jail, they have.
You sure can, you're saying.
And then they got the crazy guy up in the river, he dumped it. All that shit. I got no protection.
Stay away from that bed.
Well, I gotta change the bell. Gotta use- Yeah, you know, protection.
Right now, we got a little bit of ask for something.
What? What do I get?
That's for it.
But it's kind of fun.
Is that like a particular?
No, we're just going, well,
Yeah.
She was, when they were trying to.
Oh.
She was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my boat.
So there's a procedure that talks about you have to have,
Laundry emergency.
Yeah, I don't have those, but I can tell you it is public.
Third, number 3,
Cities
will it keep you awake? I mean, probably needed something with caffeine.
Oh. No, there was never a suggestion. Don't pay for performance. That was so.
Oh, right, I can't also make a policy decision. Probably just start the
Those are the
process.
2 days,
Like two way because you.
Load your trip.
Yeah, no, we went hiking on the Ice Age Trail in Taylor.
Yeah.
I just want to prioritize. About 45 miles.
Oh.
Just
They have like. I just want to arrive at the scenic location.
Oh, we got scenic. It was totally scenic.
Yeah. Show me a video. Oh, I enjoy hiking.
Yeah, it's not like the whole.
Not 45 miles.
I guess you.
Yeah, well, challenge yourself, you know, helps to stay fed, clear the mind, push the body on the outer limits.
Yeah, that's, I think that would be.
Did you bring your chocolate, Marie?
No, ma'am. There's cookies. Go grab a
That's
cookie.
okay, that's, no, I really don't need it. I'm good. Another cup of coffee.
There you go. But when you get home, will you actually sleep?
I will. It rarely bothers me.
Oh, man, not me anymore. I can't have coffee later.
Oh, this one?
No,
Oh, here, I've been,
no,
oh, that. no.
Is it decaf or isn't it?
no.
No, it's regular.
It's regular. We don't do the.
So you're having some? Don't pour it on the floor though.
Stop it.
Yeah, we're not cleaning it.
One time. Never lived that down.
Everybody I talked to.
I do have to say that was I don't know who puts the data in the, and IT was gonna tell them. They, on the Apple product, they told me they can't switch so it's when they scan it into the board packet, they need to put it horizontally. Cause see my, and I can't,
You can't.
it won't, yeah, that's what
Adobe
the,
has a rotate.
yeah, but the IT guy says, no, you can't switch it
Okay.
on an Apple product.
I'll follow up
Get rid
with
of Apple
Heidi.
product.
So you gotta,
Do you
yeah,
like
I
that?
don't know that we were
I do.
told that.
I don't want that.
I do.
I got rid of mine as soon as I could.
I got everything, they grew me on all Apple products, so, yeah. Yeah, so they just need to scan it in horizontally or something?
So scan it in the opposite direction of what they're doing, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's like you would read it,
But just
so,
those pages, that's a tricky bit.
yeah, because there's no way to
I
change
used
it.
to
Is it the whole packet or just certain pages?
Just the certain pages, like in particular now this one with the budget stuff, the numbers that Pat's gonna go over.
Yeah.
I can't get it to, can you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see it.
At least two
Yeah.
All right,
commissioners to
we'll
support that.
contact IT. Do you
Yeah,
know
just,
who you talked to?
Can't direct staff.
Don't direct staff, yeah.
Sam Michael?
I think Sam, yeah, it was a real brief because he was here and I said, well, how do you switch this? And he said, you can't do it.
Let's
Okay.
Tip it outside.
Marcia, do you ever rotate?
Pardon me?
Do you ever rotate that?
No, he said to Apple, you can't.
I don't think she's using Adobe. I
No,
think that she's
I don't know,
using
I'm
some
just
other
using Just off the web. I just
PDF
downloaded it.
displaying deal.
That's just Safari.
Yeah, I just downloaded off the county website. And tell me if I can do something different, but I'm a creature of habit.
Back to Adobe. Pull it apart page by page and rotate.
You can just rotate an individual page out.
Sharing that information.
Yeah, see, I can't do, they said I can't do that.
I always like.
My people told me I couldn't do it.
Yeah, see,
So I
that's
don't-
because, see those letters on the front of his HP,
Yeah.
right? See?
And You
HP.
gotta remember, I'm of the generation where you didn't play with things because you might break them. You know, now it's everything, everybody
I
plays
broke
with
everything,
stuff.
figured out how to put it back together.
That's
No.
right, Hewlett Packard, right?
No.
Not Apple.
No, I like my apples
I'd
on
like
it this time of year.
to call us back to order. Everybody have some coffee? Next agenda item is 9.4. Moga's gonna give us a monthly finance and budget update for August of 2023.
Good evening. We'll be talking about the August budget. If you look at the August budget, we are at 67% of the way through the year. And if you look at the percentages along the, what's it, 1, 2, 3, fourth column, all of them are under the 67% except the highway items. And highway, it's kind of fluctuates because of the building season. So those are running higher, both in the highway and transportation tax. So, but the other items are under the 67%. Also, I just wanted to point out that the interest that we thought we would be receiving in 2023 was 150,000 that we had budgeted. We're at 403,786 at this present time. That's due to the rates that we're getting on our investments.
Good job, Chelsea.
Right.
Any questions on this document?
Yeah, the market.
Just take credit. Come on. Just
Take the win.
Just don't go buying any Bitcoin or anything.
I think probably there's the regulation against that.
We'll talk about the summary budget. Beginning cash flow is 19.6. Actual revenues are 28.7. Actual expenses are 30 million. Ending cash is 18.2. Variance is a negative 1.3 compared to a negative 2.7 in 2022. Any questions on this document? If not, we will go to the.
Well, wait a minute, that's a big, so from a negative 278 to 1.3 million, what, can you pinpoint why such a? Because you don't have the 2022 figures on.
Part of them is if you're looking at the cash flow, once we get to the next document, I can probably explain that a little bit.
All right.
And we'll talk about your question first, Marshall, before I go read the numbers. Some of the variances is if you'll look at highway actually had a positive 700,000, which is actually the third section down. And now they're at a negative 235. And it's all based on projects. I did talk to the staff about that. There is some money that actually is coming in. But the other thing is there's a lot of, she had mentioned that for this year, there's a lot of expenses that can't actually be reimbursed. And those are engineering costs until the project is let. And that project won't be let go probably until next year. So we won't see some of those revenues. And I think if I'm not talking, when we were talking, it was probably like $500,000 to $700,000 worth of engineering costs that we'll be carrying until we actually get those projects let.
That's probably that big concrete project up by Wilson.
Any other questions before I go on to reading the information related to our variances, our cash flow for October? If not, I'll start with the general fund. General fund starts at 15.5. Actual revenues are 669. Actual expenses are 1.7. Ending cash in the general fund is 14.4 million. If you look at the whole year, we started at 15.5. Actual revenues till this point are 13.7, and actual expenses are 14.5. Actual cash is 14.4 million. Variance is in the general fund is a negative 1.1 compared to a negative 1.2. For the totals at the very bottom, it's a 1.4 compared to the 278 of last year. And we kind of talked about a couple of those variances, one being highway. Community services, it's down just a little bit. They are positive at this time. In August, they are negative right now. And the reason that is one of the big reasons is that our taxes won't be posted until December this year. And we're now into, this is August, so this would be 2 months without actually having the revenue for the taxes. And that's a big portion in all the funds is taxes. Any questions?
No, thank you.
If not, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we had moved some items. Okay, 8.6 became 9.5. So this is to approve the outside agency funding agreement with the primary prevention project. This was page 63 of our packet.
Right. And I pulled that. I wanted a separate vote. It's my basic philosophy that this is philanthropic giving of property tax dollars. Commissioner Vagley used the keyword inflation. I don't know how many people I had over the weekend and such asked me if they could get a 5% reduction because of inflation on their property taxes. So the word resonated with them. But again, it's not that these people don't do good work. They're organized as 501(c)(3)s, which is nonprofit, and that comes with some responsibilities. And I did see when we redid our policy, and all these people will have to comply with our policy, is by June 30th, they need to, of next year, report and then give us any, if they've had any audits or anything like that. So it's a new policy they will have to comply with.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved. Commissioner Vagley has seconded approval of the outside agency funding for the Winona County Primary Prevention Project. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Item 8, we used to be 8.5, no, 8.7, now it's 9.6. This is approving the outside agency funding agreement with SEMCAC.
And again, it's the same basic, but I did note in their financial report that they have reserve funds of almost $1.9 million. And so again, for them to come and ask for, was it that 6,000?
Which is marginal.
It's yeah, the request is minimal, but I guess I was astounded at that kind of reserves sitting there. And I'm not sure, again, I haven't sat on that board for years, what their plan is for, and the need to have that amount in reserve. I do not know. But again, I just,
Commissioner Elsing has asked for the floor, but I will give
Yeah.
it to you after.
just
Yeah.
can't seem
Commissioner
to add it up.
And again, I'm not against any of these agencies, but we go back to same thing, the soil water conservation district, same thing, what we're doing, going back to saying, hey, this is taxpayer money that we're giving, whether it's, we had some that were $50 dues, $500 dues, $3,000 dues. And we just questioned every single one of them and said, do you really need the money? Or are you just asking because you just always ask because you want to be relevant every year on the docket? You don't want to have to come back. And when I start looking at large numbers like that, and I say, look, is this 6,000 necessary? If I went out and asked the residents, hey, everybody chip in, you know, how quick am I going to get to 6,000? And that's my issue with it. I believe in what SEMCAC does, but when you start looking at millions of dollars, the relevancy of the county board to continue to give money just frivolously without any representation as to what the $6,000 is actually going to do. And that's my issue with it, is that I believe there needs to be a little more, and maybe I'm just new to this and I haven't seen it, but this is not picking on anybody. I've done this consistently throughout anything I've ever been, including being the mayor, that we need the numbers. These are taxpayers' money that we're taking that may not agree with what SEMCAC does. And so we need to have exceptional representation. And it's hard for me to take another $6,000, and I realize it's $6,000, but it's all these $6,000 that ends up that we're at 10.4% record tax levy right now. And it's funny that Commissioner Ward said that, but through the post in the paper, I had several people say the same thing. Why can't we get 5% reduction? Houston got 10%, this and that. And I don't have an explanation for them. So I think we just got to challenge some of these things.
Mr. Bagley?
I'll move to approve item 8.7 in terms of the as it currently reads.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Bagley's moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of outside agency funding with SEMCAC at $6,000. Further discussion?
Just a note
Mr.
then,
Ward?
if we're going to follow our policy, which we adopted on 8/8/2023, so that this is new, they will have to submit more information in a timely manner, and we need to hold them to that, what we've put in there as far as our policy.
I would point out that I think it's page 85 of the packet, but they served about 1,200 clients at that clinic this year.
County Attorney Simon wanted me to mention that in all of these outside agency funding agreements, as soon as they sign, they'll be subject to auditing and compliance requirements that's stated in the contract. So we would have access to their records and books once the agreement is in place, should the county determine that there's some reason to examine what they're using the money for.
And I'll make one comment.
Commissioner Elsing?
That's exactly what and I realize we have that. It's already, I've looked that up and I realize that we can, but anybody that's asking for $6,000 that's got 1.9 in the bank, again, to me, it's almost frivolous to do it. I just think it's a relevancy thing that, again, for taxpayer palatability and being able to explain to them why we just continue to give money when they're already sitting on so much, it just doesn't make much sense to me. And I want to support them, but I don't think we need to do it through taxation of people if they're sitting on that kind of money. So.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of outside agency funding for SEMCAC at $6,000, please, motion was made by Commissioner Bagley, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Item 8.8, which is now 9.7, approve outside agency funding agreement with the St. Charles Hometown Resource Center.
Right, and I just need a separate vote. I think I've stated my opinion.
Yeah.
Again, not that they're doing anything wrong, they're doing good stuff. Somebody said maybe publicity would be as if the county cut you off, maybe you'd get more philanthropic giving from the community. I don't know. It might work to their favor.
But this was one that when looking at this.
Commissioner Bagley, and then I will give the floor to you, Commissioner
Thank
Elsing.
you.
If it was a quick point, go ahead, Commissioner Elsing. Okay, so for a number of years, I was the volunteer team leader for the Warming Center, the overnight homeless shelter here in town. I was on the steering committee of the Warming Center. I don't think most people understand how much these people do and how much they leverage volunteers. I think this is incredibly important. I would like to move to approve this item, but with an addition of a 5% increase. That would be $360. The reason being is in light of the inflation that is, and this is, I'm not asking for advocating for all, and 5% is in light of the inflation over the last couple of years. Most of our outside agencies have been kept flat for a number of years. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the request with a 5% increase, which is $360.
I would point out that what they've asked us for is $8,000.
$8,000.
Yeah,
So,
and
yes.
we're only giving them 7,200.
It would be 7560 with as a 5%. Yeah,
75,
the request was $8,000.
I'll second it.
This is open for
Commissioner
discussion. Again, it's palatable to me as I know the food center does not have a whole lot of money. I know that for a fact, right? And seeing something that services the community that is running as tight as what they are is very easy for me it's significantly easier for me to say, here, let's help you out. The problem I have is I go back to everybody else is saying, can I get a 5% reduction, 10% reduction? We're dealing with inflation. B, that particular organization has the ability to go out and gather funds from the community and has the ability to go after that. It's a little bit knowing that they don't have any money. It's a little more palatable for me to go and say, hey, this is a good thing to do. What I have a hard time with is we continue to give all these increases when we've set a preliminary levy and we've got a lot of other things that we're staring at. I'm not against them. In fact, I would love to just go down and hear donation, and Lord knows we get hit from everybody to donate to a lot of different things. I would challenge to show the checkbook, anybody that disagrees. But it's just difficult that we keep giving it away when we have this thing. So I don't know, that's just tough for me doing to keep raising all these 5%. So as little as it is, it's the principle behind it right now.
Further discussion? Mr.
I
Baker?
don't deny that people have contacted you. Those are very valid, credible concerns. I've also had a
I'm not
handful.
saying they have.
I'm sorry, not them, but how community members have contacted you and asked about a 5% decrease in their property tax, including 10%. I've had a handful of people contact me and thank me as one of the people who looked at and valued the importance of these community partners. And none of those that I think, none of them are staff members or like on the board of those organizations. So very valid, very credible, but just want to throw it out there that there's also people who value these partnerships and see the need, especially for organizations and nonprofits that leverage a ton of volunteers to make these organizations work.
I don't disagree.
Yep.
Commissioner Ward?
And what you said is one of the great things about our society. We are a giving and volunteer, and we all have our passions. Now, I do see, and I don't know if these people have this on file or they have websites, but as a nonprofit under the 501(c), it says a nonprofit is required to and again, asking for more information to justify this, to maintain complete, accurate books and records regarding its operations and affairs, including its articles and bylaws, accounting records, voting agreements, and meeting minutes. I guess we can ask them. I mean, it is in the state statute if you're organized under a 501(c). Do they have a website that this stuff is available to the public to look at as far as information? I don't know. I mean, I think we need to ask them if they do, if that's the articles there. It says right there, 501(c), and this comes off the, the statute. So I guess I would ask that they comply with the statutory requirements of a 501(c) for future determinations.
Would probably contact Mr. Parlin and ask him.
Well, they should be giving it to us. We shouldn't really even have to.
I think they've given us what we've asked for.
Well, and not according to that, I haven't seen, but that's okay. I mean, that's what we need to do.
Further discussion? Commissioner Elsing?
I'm going to vote no just because of the 5%. But I will literally drive down there tomorrow and write them a check myself personally. And that is not philanthropy.
Thank you.
Government philanthropy. That is the way it should be. That's these groups should be doing those things because to me, they should be funded that way. And, you know, I don't disagree with what they're getting, but just continues to set this precedent of taking taxpayer money into philanthropy.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of funding the outside agency request for the St. Charles Hometown Resource Center at 7560 for 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. If anyone's opposed, please say nay.
Hey,
Motion carries. That concludes our business for the evening.
Put it in my phone and we'll give them a check.
In case someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
well, you want to real quick update?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just so
That's
excited
okay.
to get out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's late.
So Commissioner Ward, please
Yeah,
do.
we had our Region 9 meeting at Oxbow Park in lovely Ulster County. And it was interesting. We always go around the room and there's 11 counties and we give an update and everybody gives what their percentage of levy is. Well, I asked this year, you know, percentages don't mean a whole lot if you don't know what the dollars and cents are. So I asked, how many dollars did that levy amount generate? And so between the 11 counties, now you do have to remember Olmsted County is part of our 11 counties. And so they set up a very high bar, but everybody had an increase. The lowest was 700,000 and the highest was 6 million. But of the 11 counties, Rochester, yeah, Olmsted County, it was a 5.2%, but 5.2% is approximately $6 million additional to them, but their tax base. But of all the 11 counties, this is my concern, is that we're having to raise our taxes to cover the programs the state threw all kinds of money at, and the feds threw all kinds of money at. Think of the money we've spent the last couple of years between COVID and the state and all this stuff. But the 11 counties are raising $20,145,000 of local property tax dollars to do the state's job. That to me is criminal. I'll leave it at that. But Olmsted County has really nice concrete roads except going to Oxbow Park. I do have to quiz them though. They do seem to be doing a lot of concrete, and how are they? I don't know how they're, of course, their tax base is so much bigger, but this is a rural county road and going in there was a very nice concrete road.
They just want to be like Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I have to ask them how they get so many concrete, because we usually have to get federal dollars to do a concrete.
Well, and I question whether they're able to recycle some of that from like the big 52
Yeah,
projects and a lot
I
of
don't
those
know.
types of state
Yep.
funded highways, federal
Yep.
funded highways that.
They got
Commissioner
nice
Olson,
roads.
you wanted to make a comment.
They got nice roads.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to comment, I may not be here next week meeting. So I got asked to speak at the Capitol on behalf of this coalition for feedlot limited usage. And so to speak against that, and again, try to protect agriculture.
But he could Zoom timing wise, if you could find a place in St. Paul, you could possibly Zoom part of it if that would work.
If Commissioner Elsing
Noted.
identifies in advance the place that he would be at and it is public, you can participate remotely.
And there might be a conflict.
Yeah,
there.
see what your
You
timing
could
is.
even do it from the hotel of your lobby. I mean, lobby of your hotel.
Rotunda of the Capitol.
Hotel of your lobby.
And I think that it's good to know ahead of time, and occasionally we will all miss a meeting here and there. So, and you can talk with Commissioner Holty in terms of like items.
We're all getting tired.
Sorry, Ms. Holty, to talk about what should or shouldn't be on the agenda. So, Mr. Ellison, if you don't want something on the agenda, just let her know. Can I add one thing when we're all done going around?
We're not allowed.
I will allow it. I'm going to follow up on what
Give me that
Commissioner
gavel.
Ward said, okay? Though, so one of the things that Commissioner Greg Wright of Olmsted County talked about is Olmsted's initiative asking other counties to consider, they want to do a regionalization of their 911 dispatch. Now, I realize we've just made a major investment in our dispatch. Nonetheless, who's to say that that's going to happen right away? And so in terms of just long-term thinking, I would,
And be the backup.
Yeah, I would like us to at least be willing to participate in the conversations. Now, do you want to like make this as a item for the next committee of the board meeting? In which case I'm looking for a second to have that discussion.
Well, I would second it, sitting on the emergency communications, and we've alluded to this. I know it, yeah, there's multiple partners, as Commissioner Wright, I talked with after the meeting, who he needs to contact within his own county to get on
Yeah,
board.
I don't want to not have that conversation, even if it's a 10-year thing down the road. If other counties are going to get in on it, I mean, we should at least,
We could be a good backup. I
yeah,
mean,
we should at
if
least
we got new
be
equipment.
part of the conversation. Commissioner Baker.
Two things. I want to thank all the county commissioners. This is America. We're not supposed to all think alike all the time. I value the opinions and views of everybody on the county board. If we all agreed, it would be both boring and scary, where this is not North Korea or whatever else. So I appreciate the different points of view. And secondly, Commissioner Elstein, I'm not sure if you were here, but at the first meeting, after I was sworn in, I did this during my first 2 terms. You mentioned about going down to the
Hometown Resource Center.
thank you, brain dead, in St. Charles tomorrow. Tell me, depending upon how much you're going to donate, I'll match. $500. Jesus, really?
Go for it.
We'll talk afterwards about me possibly matching some amount of that, because I wanted you to know, Josh, that in addition to what I already do, I took $2,000 and $1,000 for veterans groups and $1,000 between the free community meals when I was elected. So I hear what you're saying and I appreciate it, but let me know what you're going to do and I might match it. So
You could give them something. They do.
too late to commit to $500.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah. A motion to adjourn by Commissioner Olson.
Second.
Ward seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, you can stay here by yourself.